Costco list.
And I just forgot his phone too. So.
I did.
That. I was in such a rush to get out of there.
Both out of touch.
I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. My air conditioning unit upstairs went out. I'm sure Eric. And I called this morning. I go, well, we can't get there for 2 or 3 days.
You're kidding.
My kids are sleeping downstairs.
Because everybody else is without.
Your air conditioning's out?
The upstairs unit. There's a separate unit outside, and the fan froze up.
Oh, yeah, the condenser fan, yeah. That shuts her down big time. Imagine the punishment those
Well,
things
good morning and welcome to the June 30th Board of Supervisors meeting. We will proceed in the following manner. After the flag salute and moment of silence, we are going to do the service award presentations. We will then handle the consent calendar and then move to our public hearings. So those that are here for the public hearings will probably do those close to or short after 9:30. So again, welcome. If you would please stand with me as we salute the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. We have part 2 of our service award presentations, which is an exciting time of each year for all of the employees and for the board as well. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Tim Huntley, who will run the proceedings.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and welcome to all of you employees who are here today. I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, Judy Weens, the departmental secretary who's responsible for coordinating the acquisition and the scheduling of this. She does a terrific job. And her able assistants, Becky Buckingham. The departments this year have provided us with information about each recipient. The comments, accounts, and descriptions of the employee recipients are the property of the department from which they hail. Accordingly, Human Resources and Development disavows, is not responsible for, and in some cases thinks they're just plain, well, I can't use stupid, I was told, like I did last week. So I was cautioned that that was too harsh a word, so we'll just call them almost stupid. Anyway, we are merely the messenger this morning. And so with no further ado, we will begin. These are presented in district order by the supervisor where the employee who's being honored resides. And our first recipient is Mary Alanese, Office Assistant 2, Health and Human Services Agency, 15 years. She's an IHSS receptionist. She's very courteous and extremely helpful to visitors. She is described as always greeting everyone with a big smile, has a wonderful sense of humor and positive attitude. She is very well liked by everyone at IHSS. It's always a pleasure to work with Mary. Next we have Beverly Aldaco, Health and Human Services, 15 years. Beverly, while stationed at the CWS South Mooney office, developed an organized tracking system and was assigned is she here?
Yes.
The authorized representative with global drug testing regarding CWS client test results. She is very knowledgeable in office protocols, understood the importance of office confidentiality, and adapted well and showed great willingness to take new assignments. And she is missed since her retirement in March. Thank you for coming in today. The next recipient, Beverly Dawson, is also retired after 15 years of service. She worked in the HHSA in Tulare Works. In her retirement, Beverly will travel more and also hopes to continue her education to obtain her master's. And she's apparently not here.
Well, I'd like to make an announcement to people who receive these alarm clocks. If you notice, there's a great big snooze button on them. And
It's for the retirees.
He ought to know he uses his at home.
Cynthia Hilton, Health and Human Services, 15 years, is described as a reliable employee responsible in part for the overall success of the WIC program in Tulare County. Cynthia has served as the dietetic internship coordinator for Porterville Internship Program since the fall of 2000. She's extremely proud of her family, has a great husband. Her daughter attends Exeter High School, and her son just finished his third year at UC Riverside. Congratulations, Cynthia. Martha Molina, Social Services Worker 2, HHSA, 15 years. Martha started her employment as an office assistant. For the past 5 years, she's been a Social Service Worker 2 for the CAST program, making a difference in parenting teens' life. She has 5 children and 9 beautiful grandchildren. She's working towards her bachelor's degree at Fresno Pacific University. In her spare time, good heavens, you have spare time? She is an advisor for the community cheerleading team. Go, Martha, go. Next, we have Gracelia Ramirez, Health and Human Services, 15 years. She's described as a very unique person, quiet yet insightful. She's hardworking, honest, and a team player. She's very flexible and always willing to assist her coworkers. Highly respected by the providers, supervisors, and peers. She is the type of employee all supervisors wish for: punctual, hardworking, respectful, and self-motivated. Thank you. Next, we have Nancy Aguilar, Program Specialist, Health and Human Services, a 20-year employee. She's been a Program Specialist since 2001. Nancy's been selected as Employee of the Month. She's very actively involved in her church, loves camping, and her favorite thing to do is spend time with her grandkids. She is a people person with a big heart for those in need. Congratulations, Nancy. Next, we have Angel, also known as Cesar Mariquin, Caseworker Aid 2 and CWS, 20 years with HHSA. He's described as an outgoing guy. He played guitar and sang in his band called Passion for 15 years. They gave the band that name because they had a passion for music. Cesar loves going to the coast with his family. His motto in life is, "I always believe in giving people a second chance. People need chances to prove themselves." He never hesitates to go that extra mile with families that we serve. Congratulations. Also 20 years, Social Services Worker 3, Jane Molina Morales. She started with the county back in 1988. She spent her first 10 years with Child Welfare and then moved to the Veterans Office and Family Care before moving to Adult Protective Services. Her current assignment in 2005 is with APS. She's devoted to her family, her community, and her clients, and is an inspiration to everyone who's been working with her. Congratulations. Next, we have Mary Thomas, retired. She was retired as a team leader with CWS with HHSA. She has 35 years of service with Tulare County. She began in 1973 as an Eligibility Worker 1, promoted to Eligibility Worker 3 in 1980. She became an Eligibility Supervisor. In 1989, Mary entered the Child Protective Services Division as a Social Service Worker 1, rising to Lead Worker for licensing in 2001, and was appointed Team Leader in 2007. She has been in charge of foster parent orientation and coordination with the College of the Sequoias and FSU, To ensure high-quality training, she liaises on foster parent issues with the State Community College Licensing Office. She has received the Employee Recognition Awards in 1998, 2001, 2002, and 2003, and was selected Social Worker of the Year in 2000 by the California State Foster Parent Association. Congratulations on a great career. Next, we have District 2 with Supervisor Pete Vanderpool. Our first recipient is Gib Hammond, a licensed social worker with HHSA for 15 years. Gib, as he likes to be called, enjoys the outdoors and likes taking long walks. He has 6 children, with the youngest leaving soon for college. That's worth congratulating you on. With his newfound free time, because he doesn't have kids at home anymore, he plans on doing more community service work and working with faith-based youth groups. Congratulations, Gib. Also with 15 years of service, Stephanie Jacobsma, Self-Sufficiency Counselor 3 with HHSA. Stephanie loves spending time with her grandchildren. She is an active church member and participates in many church-sponsored functions. She enjoys people and finds satisfaction with her job as she is able to assist others in obtaining housing, food, and medical care in these hard times. Congratulations. Our next recipient with 20 years of service in HHSA is Betty Guerrero. An office assistant 2 is one of 4 senior staff that answer the busy phone lines, which answer calls from many of our 28,925 WIC participants. Betty has a cheerful voice and spirit, works well with all our coworkers. She makes a point to greet them all every day with a cheerful hello. She has always been very caring and has been in our WIC program for 21 years and is a loyal and dedicated worker. Congratulations, Betty. Next recipient, Self-Sufficiency Counselor 3, Cindy Miller, with 30 years of service. In her unit, she is the peacemaker, the comedian, the worker who will take on more than she can do single-handed, but she won't whisper a complaint about it. She is also known to her co-workers as the storyteller and the one person in the union that tells you what it is like, but does it in the sweetest way. Next, for District 3, Chairman Phil Cox. And our first recipient is Chris Gieser. The department describes him as Paul. He was hired in 1993 as a detention services officer. He has been a patrol deputy, field training officer, and post-training coordinator. He is currently assigned as a detective in the SAFE unit, Sexual Assault Felony Enforcement. He is the department first aid, CPR, and AED instructor. AED stands for automatic defibrillator, and has given numerous presentations on those areas. He has received an Employee Appreciation Award as well as a letter of commendation from Sheriff Bill Whitman for his excellent dedication. Thank you very much. Also with 15 years from HHSA, Velia Mendoza, an Office Assistant 3. She's currently stationed in the South Mooney Child Welfare Services Office. Velia's main duty is the front reception desk. Her dependability and courteousness makes her well-liked by her peers. She is dependable, takes on new tasks, and is conscientious about her work. She is a team player. Next, from the Sheriff's Department with 15 years of service, Sheriff's Corrections Sergeant Stan Riddell. He began his career with the Sheriff's Department. Is he here? Okay. Go ahead and read it, did you say? All right. Began his career with the Sheriff's Department in 1990 as a Deputy 1 assigned to Sequoia Field. He became a reserve deputy in 1992, moved to a full-time position as a detention services officer in 94, and he began promoting through the detention specialist ranks. In 2007, he was promoted to correctional sergeant and is currently stationed at the adult pretrial facility. I might be there. In his professional capacity, of course. I know, I was careful, I didn't want anybody to misunderstand. Okay, next, and I do hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly, Stephanie Bichelle, Health and Human Services Agency, 20 years of service. She's the loving mother of her only daughter, who she is supporting through college on a single-parent income. She's an avid reader, good listener, patient, and demonstrates a calm demeanor to her staff. Since 1993, Stephanie has been supervising eligibility staff in both the Visalia District Office and the Medi-Cal and Food Stamp Service Center. Congratulations. Next, we have from the Sheriff's Department, Douglas McFarland, a Sheriff's Sergeant in Corrections, 20 years of service. Doug was hired as a Deputy 1 in 1988 and assigned to Sequoia Field in 1994. He transferred to the main jail where he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. Since then, he has worked at the Tulare County Correctional Center, Women's Correctional Facility, and returned to the main jail where he is currently assigned. Congratulations, Sergeant. "20 years of service in HHSA, Luz Rivas is a nutrition assistant too. She's described as having many talents, is a great help to all new mothers needing breastfeeding assistance, and has a creative eye for decorating and perking up the office. She enjoys spending time with her adult children and grandchildren and visiting the coast with her twin sister for their annual birthday celebration." Congratulations. Our next recipient with 20 years of service is from the Office of the Public Defender, Pia Stanley. Pia requested only that it be mentioned that she has worked as a public defender now for 20 years. She is too modest. Pia is a fine advocate and trial attorney. She has chosen to specialize in juvenile law. For many years, she was the de facto head of the juvenile team until her promotion to supervising attorney in 2006. She manages the only true public defender satellite office, which includes litigation support, scheduling interaction with juvenile judges. That alone is worthy of an award. All while handling her own caseload. Congratulations, Pia. Also from the Public Defender's Office, analyst Kathleen Walker. Kathy began working for the county in 1987 as a paralegal for county counsel. She transferred to the Public Defender Office in 1995 and promoted to the services analyst in 1997. While working, she has acquired her bachelor's degree in business management and her master's degree in public administration. Every office has one employee without whom the office would cease to effectively and efficiently function as it currently does. And knowing her boss, I can testify to the validity of that assessment. She handles departmental HR matters, budget preparation, and oversees support staff. Kathy's advice and counsel is invaluable to the second largest law office in the county. Congratulations, Kathy. Our next recipient is Brian Lewis, the county librarian with 25 years of service. Brian provided us with his curriculum vitae. For those of you not versed in Latin, that's his resume. His wife, Kathy, of 31 years, is a director of COS's library. He has 2 daughters, one in Lexington, Kentucky, and one in Durham, North Carolina. He got his bachelor's degree in political science from UCLA. Okay. His master's degree from USC. Well, you know what they say, Brian? You're a Bruin for 4 years and a Trojan forever, so I forgive you. He actually got his master's in PA from Utah State University, started working in libraries on St. Patrick's Day in 1969. He bleeds Dodger blue. You've gone too far, Brian. Next, we have from the District Attorney, Systems and Procedures Analyst 2, Vanda Kennedy, with 30 years of service. Vanda began her career with the DA's office in 1977 as an intermediate clerk typist. Interested in the mysteries of an emerging technology, personal computers led her to develop and implement new automated procedures. This would be the beginning of office-wide automation for the DA's office. She has overseen and participated in the implementation of 6 different computer systems and has been reclassified due to her ever-changing duties. She currently holds the position of Systems and Procedures Analyst 2 and manages the District Attorney's IT graphics unit and has no intentions of retiring soon. I'm sure Phil is appreciative of that. Thank you. Next, we have Supervisor Stephen Worthley, and his first presentation will be to Self-Sufficiency Counselor Patricia Conrad with 15 years of service. Patricia is focused and very thorough in her work and flexible when needed to assist other team members. In this time of change, she has kept a positive attitude. She is a pleasure to supervise, and she is very pleasant and an open-minded person who demonstrates eagerness to learn new processes. It's very complimentary. Thank you, Patricia. Next, also with 15 years of service from HHSA, Barbara Gomes, Self-Sufficiency Resource Specialist. She works in the Dinuba office and is described as an outgoing individual who is a joy to work with. She has been nominated Employee of the Month several times, the most recent being July 2008. She's dependable, a true team player, always willing to help her coworkers. She shows up to work every day, working to the best of her abilities, and is greatly appreciated by her peers. Next, we have, also with 15 years in HHSA, Mary Huerta, who has worked for Tulare County HHS-7A for 17 years. Apparently we missed you last year for some reason. I don't know what happened, but we'll find out. She started as an eligibility worker 1 and promoted to eligibility worker 3, and in 1998 was promoted to social worker 2 for maternal child health and family services coordinator in 2001. For the past 4 years, Mary has spent her time in child welfare and investigation, has been diligent in completing records checks and liaising between CWS social workers and law enforcement agencies. Congratulations, a tough job. Also, with 15 years of service, Belinda Vasquez, Health and Human Services Agency, a self-sufficiency supervisor. She is the mother of 6 with 2 grandchildren. Her youngest sons recently graduated from Dinuba High School, where their, quote, football mom, unquote, is very active in the school booster club. She loves books on CD and volunteers for election. Belinda has worked as a clerk, eligibility worker, and currently, as I mentioned before, the supervisor at the Medi-Cal and Food Stamp Service Center. Okay. Next, also from HHSA, Gloria Camacho, Self-Sufficiency Resource Specialist with 20 years of service. She currently conducts Tulare Works orientations for clients applying for cash assistance in Dinuba. Her communication skills and listening abilities have helped by reducing barriers to provide appropriate resources for clients to become self-sufficient. Her bubbly personality is a morale booster to the Dinuba District Office. What a nice compliment. Congratulations. Next, with 20 years of service, also with 20 years of service, Leticia Corrales, Self-Sufficiency Counselor 3, is described as an individual with high customer standards. Her goal is to assist her peers and customers on a daily basis. She's a highly valued employee and an asset to the county. She's been nominated for Employee of the Month several times and received the honor in November of 2001. She functions as a lead worker and is always ready to assist her coworkers in any situation. She always treats her clients with courtesy and respect. Congratulations, Leticia. Next, from the Sheriff's Department with 20 years of service, Eddie Huerta, a lieutenant in corrections. Huerta has been with the county for 21 years. He has an AS degree and has received Officer of the Year for Detentions from the Deputy Sheriff's Association and Officer of the Year for Detentions from the Latino Peace Officers Association. Lieutenant Huerta has worked at each of the detention facilities and is currently the lieutenant of the adult pretrial facility. Congratulations. Also from the Sheriff's Department with 20 years of service, Jerry Mayberry, a Sheriff's Sergeant. He was hired in 1988 as a reserve deputy. Later, he became a full-time Deputy 1 in the Detentions Division. In 1994, he was promoted to a Deputy 2, and in 1997 became a detective in the Sheriff's STEP, SWAT, and Narcotics units. In 2003, he became the department's range master in the Personnel and Training Division and was promoted to the rank of sergeant in May of 2008. His current assignment is Patrol Sergeant at the Porterville Station. Congratulations. Next, we have to go faster to stay on schedule for the chairman. Supervisor Mike Ennis from District 5. And we'll start out with Brilliant Ivans, a licensed vocational nurse with HHSA, 15 years of service. Her supervisor, first of all, puts the postscript that she goes by Billy and says Billy is upbeat, always genuinely concerned about her clients and coworkers. At home, one of her hobbies is making beaded jewelry, and she gives some to staff at Christmas time. What a nice idea. Congratulations. Next, Lawrence Jared, an account clerk with HHSA for 15 years. According to the record, he's worked there for 16 years. 13 of those years were in the fiscal department of HHSA. He has a vast knowledge of the department, the duties that are required, and the computer system. He's described as a hard worker and a dedicated employee. Congratulations, Lawrence. Also with 15 years service, Edith Levon, Workforce Development Specialist 2. Her career spans 24 years, the last 15 of which are in the Tulare County Workforce Investment Department. Prior to that, she owned and operated a citrus ranch for 17 years. Edith is a graduate of Leadership Porterville, a staunch supporter of the Porterville Fair. She's won several awards in gourmet cooking and gardening. She designs and makes costumes and clothing and loves to fish and play golf with her grandchildren. Wonderful. Next, our first 20-year recipient from District 5, Janet Jones, Self-Sufficiency Supervisor. She is always ready for a challenge or a change, and in HHSA we have lots of both. Well, that would be true certainly recently. She always gives 100%, and we can count on her to complete whatever she is assigned. She remembers that our first goal is to serve the people of Tulare County. We all enjoy working with Janet. Congratulations. And last but certainly not least is Laura Lady, Program Specialist 2 for CalWorks, also with HHSA. If she's in CalWorks, it would be logical that she's with HHSA. Yes, all right. 20 years of service. She is described as the best golfer on the change management team. Has traveled to Europe and Fiji, has a genuine passion for her job, an eye for detail, a strong desire for accuracy, and a concern for staff affected by her decisions. There's a footnote here. Her supervisor would like to challenge her for the title of Best Golfer on the Change Management Team. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentations from here.
Thank you. Before you leave, we'd like to take a few moments and say a few words. We'll start down here with Supervisor Ennis.
Well, congratulations to all the recipients. And, you know, as we always say, and it's so true, you are the face of Tulare County, and you're the people that are out there on a daily basis taking care of business for Tulare County and making it run. So appreciative of all you do, each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
I also would like to thank you for your service. And this group's probably a little bit different to the degree that you probably have more public face time with the public, and that you see more people than some of our other departments. And it's really true. When people meet you, you are the face of the county, and that you've done a great job for all these years, and we certainly appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
I like that.
Single clap.
Clap.
I would like to congratulate each person who is here today, and as my 11th year, I've handed out awards to some of you, I guess now a couple of times. You know, in addition to some of those things, those truths that we hear about, taxes and death, I can add that I can always count on Chairman Cox to tell you how many thousands of years you all will represent when he adds up the numbers, and for Pete Vanderpool to say, and some of you were here working before I was even born, so just preparing you for those comments that will be forthcoming. But one thing I did notice that was very interesting in today's grouping was that we didn't have a lot of the large numbers of 30, 35 years, 25 years. It's a more youthful group in terms of years of service. And the other thing I noticed was that I think for the very first time, there were as many employees recognized from District 1 as there was from District 3. Normally District 3 just has about 3 times what anybody else would have. But they were very evenly spread this time among the 5 districts. And so that was something unique. I've never seen that before. Very interesting. I guess it talks about people traveling and where we have services throughout the county as well. But congratulations again to all of you. Any success that we have as a county is totally accountable to the services that you all provide, and we do thank you for that very much.
I would like to congratulate everyone as well for your many years of service, and as Supervisor Worthley already mentioned, many of you have served longer than I've been alive, and I thank you very much for that. And I think it's really telling to see that the years of service are getting a little bit shorter, and so these are employees that will hopefully be around for their 25th year, their 30th year, and hopefully 35th and on. So thank you for your years of service and your commitment to Tulare County. You make the county run the way that it does, so I really am very appreciative of that, and thank you for your many years of service.
Well, that magic number today is 745 years of combined service, although it sounds like we did have a few individuals that have been here 1 or 2 more years, and they're just now receiving their pin. But thank you for all that you do. The work you do is appreciated. The phone calls that somehow get past you come to us, and believe me, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the phone calls you take, because I know sometimes they're not friendly, happy people on the other end of the phone. So thank you for what you do for the county and the way in which you represent us. And by what your peers have said about you, it seems like we have a group of very wonderful people here today. So thank you for your service, and we owe you a standing applause. And it also has to be said, go back to work.
Except those who are retired.
Those of you that are retired, you can stick around a little while longer if you'd like.
Go hit the snooze button.
I kind of feel like Simon Cowell of American Idol when he says, and then there were 12. Maybe a little more than 12. Okay, we'll now move to our public comment session. I do have two requests to speak during agenda item number 5 from a Beatrice Coleman and Erica Payne. So we'll let you folks be heard during the hearing of item number 5. 3 requests for public comment. So now is the time for public comment. If you'd like to address the board on any item under the board's preview, not on today's agenda, you may do so. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes, so up to a 15-minute time period for public comment period. I have 3 requests, and any of those wishing to speak beyond that are free to do so. First, a Pete Trevino.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, gentlemen and ladies. Good morning, citizens of Visalia. It's a great pleasure to know all these hardworking people are working for us and representing the county and making it a better place to live and making Visalia the most wonderful city in California. The reason that I'm here is to speak to you about the upcoming decisions that you have to make for the IHSS. I've been an IHSS worker since 1997, and I understand about the budget crisis and all the other problems that you face. The decisions that you have to make, though, are not revenues or mathematical equations. They affect human beings. They affect people's lives, the future. With that said, I'd like to say that I am a home care worker provider of Tulare County. I'm here to say that when considering the proposed cuts for IHS providers, please remember that these cuts for our providers in Tulare County will have very little benefits. Unlike other counties' employees, we get no vacation time, no sick time, no pension, only the wages that we receive. It would be unprudent to not provide the care and time and expenses for this program. I hope that you'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Madrigal.
Good morning. My name is Tony Madrigal, and I'm the area union representative for the California United In-Home Care Workers Union. I had some news I want to share with you about some of the things that we've been doing at the state level. On June 25th, we won a lawsuit in U.S. District Court filed by SEIU, our sister union, to halt the state's $2 cut to the in-home care wages that were scheduled to take place on July the 1st. I don't know if any of y'all had heard about it. And so, according to the budget that was passed back in February by our state lawmakers, the state was going to lower its contribution towards the in-home care wages from $11.50 an hour to $9.50 an hour. And if that was going to be implemented, it would have resulted in some providers receiving a pay cut, and that would have hindered all of us from being able to negotiate a higher wage that reflect the hard work that these providers do for seniors and people with disabilities in all our counties, including Tulare County, for example. And so while we recognize that this is a huge and historic victory in our, what seems like a never-ending fight to protect home care, we also recognize that the fight is far from over, because we do understand that the governor is still pushing to eliminate about 90% of the IHSS program and cut their wages to minimum wage, which is what is it, still $8 an hour, I believe. And so we urge you to please not make any changes to the IHSS program. We still don't know what the state's going to do. And as you can see, things are changing almost daily. We're not giving up the fight. We're relentless because we want to protect the program for the benefit of the people receiving the care and for our members. So thank you.
Thank you. Rosa Satani.
Good morning. My name is Rosa Soltani, and I live in Visalia, and I am a home care provider in Tulare County. I work for Visalia Unified School District for 20 years and a half as a piano accompanist, but now I am taking care for my mother in this program for 4 years. She's in a wheelchair. She needs a lot of help. I need to prepare meals, sometimes two different meals, because she likes everything in the blender. I need to take outside in the wheelchair, in my car, walking with her in the park, but always pushing the wheelchair. And she doesn't like to be in the convalescent hospital. I need to take care for her. Please do not make any cuts or change to the IHSS program, because we don't know what the state budget is going to look like. We just want a lawsuit that will prevent the state from cutting their funding for IHSS wage from $11.50 per hour to $9.50 per hour, starting July 1st, 2009. And this means things are changing. So it is better to just wait and see what the state does for IHSS and the state budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie Aravito.
Good morning. My name is Kania Acevedo, and I live in Porterville, and I'm a in-home care support provider. I take care of my son, and I also work for this FRC, this called Parenting Network, and we provide support and help to all those families that are raising a disabled child from 0 to 5 years old. And I'm just here to ask you, please don't cut the funds for our programs, because my son, my families will be affected due to this cut. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak during public comment period? Seeing none, we will move to Board of Supervisor matters. We'll start on my left this time. Supervisor Vanderpool.
I don't have anything to say today.
Supervisor Worthley.
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Nishida? We can always count on you, so go ahead.
Most of the time. Sunday, I attended the water meeting with Secretary Salazar in Fresno, and it was a packed house. I guess they estimated about 900 people. The things that I took away from that meeting, because very few of the farmers were able to testify or speak to the secretary, is that I hope we don't see this water issue that's developing in Fresno County become a regional issue, that we're Western's Water District versus the Delta. The water issue needs a statewide solution, and we do not need to play regions against regions. Tomorrow there's a big water rally in Fresno, and I hope they keep this in mind, that we do need relief from the EPA, Environmental Protection Act, but it's nationwide, and it's not just for the pumps in the Delta. So I hope tomorrow that we stay more on track of finding a state solution. I was kind of surprised that we had some people from the Delta that came up and said we should solve the water issue in California region by region. It does not work. It's a statewide solution, and that statewide solution, we've talked about billions and billions of dollars. It could probably be a lot more expensive than some of us had initially thought of if we approach it on a statewide basis, because it brings back probably the Auburn Dam into the equation. So I hope everybody involved in the current water crisis does keep on track and look at the EPA and a statewide solution.
Thank you. Supervisor Ennis.
To keep it short this morning and say nothing, so.
Thank you. I'll just have one item. As everyone's mentioning the state budget, the state. As we sit here today, I can tell you I've been very proud to be a member of the Board of Supervisors here, who over the last 5 years that I've been a part have been a very conservative group of people who have been very conscious about our budget and about our employees. We've provided several merit increases over the last 4 years since I've been here, trying to bring our employees up to where other employees throughout the area are. So I've been very proud as we face these tough budget times. These are not problems that this board or the boards prior to this have created. We are actually inheriting problems from the state, from the federal government, and it is literally trickling downhill. So just the statement I'd like to make is I am proud to be a part of a group that has been very conservative. As we sit here today, the cuts we face and the hard decisions we've had to make are less severe than other counties in the state. So with that, we will now move to the consent calendar, noting that we have 4 addenda items that have been added to it. Items number 8 and 9 have corrections in the math, I believe, are the only corrections, and those are submitted as well. So we have consent calendar items 6 through 32. Are there any members of the board that would like to pull an item for separate consideration? Seeing none, are there any members of the public that would like to pull one of the consent calendar items for separate consideration? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Vanderpool, second by Worthley. Vote is unanimous. We will now take up our timed items. Item number 4 is a public hearing, a request from RMA to certify and reviewed and considered the information in the addendum, negative declaration, and cancellation of PAC 07004, and about 300 other numbers as listed in the agenda. So with that, we will turn the time over to Resource Management Agency for their presentation. For item number 4.
David Claxton, Resource Management Agency. I believe Roberto Brady stepped out for just a moment. I'll go get him.
He's right there.
He was gathering his papers. Just the heading on the agenda is 2 pages.
Good morning, Chairman Cox, Supervisors, Roberto Brady, Resource Management Agency. This item is an application for a change of zone and a vesting tentative subdivision map. The applicant is Self-Help Enterprises. The subject site is located at the southwest corner of Avenue 312 and the Road 72 alignment in northeast Goshen. The application requests the rezoning of 6.03 acres to R2 for multifamily development right here. And the balance of the site, 31.38 acres, to be rezoned to R1, single-family residential for single-family development. Both portions of the project would be for affordable housing, meaning it would be aimed at households at 80% or below the median income of the county. This is a detail of the vesting tentative subdivision map. The multifamily portion would be lot 78 right here, and it would be 77 single-family lots ranging in size from 5,000 square feet up to a little more than 7,000. Lot 79 would be for park and drainage basin use, and the remainder parcel up here also zoned R1. This is a detail of the final site plan for the multifamily development. They are proposing 56 units in fourplex type buildings, townhouse type buildings, some one-story, some two-story units, a clubhouse, and open space. This would be allowed if the zone change and the tentative map are approved. The Site Plan Review Committee has a jurisdiction under the ordinance on the multifamily development as though we're in the R2 zone. The site is currently zoned A1, agricultural zone, 5-acre minimum. Surrounding parcels are zoned AE40, exclusive ag, 40-acre minimum, R1, single-family residential, and R2. Single-family R1 and R2, two-family residential zoning is requested. This aerial photograph shows the agricultural land use of currently on the site and north of Avenue 312, Reagan Avenue. Also currently to the west, to the southwest is predominantly single-family residential. There is also a multifamily residential project just to the south. That was developed by the current applicant, Self-Help Enterprises. Just off this picture to the east is the city of Visalia limits and large industrial buildings as part of their industrial park. This site is located inside the Goshen Community Plan area. The project site is currently designated residential, and the proposed R1 and R2 zoning is consistent with that designation. Other Goshen Community Plan's policies relevant to this project are to encourage new housing construction within the community to meet the needs of low and moderate income residents, encourage new residential development to locate in the northeastern portion of the community away from the airport impact area, and provide for improved circulation in the northeast sector by extending Road 72 to the north and Avenue 12, or extending Avenue 310 up to Avenue 312. Let me go back to the map and, oops, sorry, wrong way. This is currently the roads terminate at this intersection, Avenue 310 and Road 72. Road 72 would be extended north to Riggin to Avenue 312 and east along the Avenue 310 alignment and into the subdivision. The applicant has requested concessions from zoning and subdivision regulations under state density bonus law. Summarize the provisions of the density bonus law. All units must be developed for households below 80% of county median income. Projects meeting the threshold can increase the density or request under other incentives under state law. Incentives can include concessions to development standards when needed to ensure the feasibility of the project. The applicant has requested 3 types of concessions to the setback yard requirements in the multifamily development, minimum lot area and minimum lot width in the single family area. Local agency may deny requested concession when there is a substantial evidence that would create a specific adverse impact on public health and safety or the physical environment as defined in the law. With regard to CEQA compliance on this project, an addendum to the negative declaration certified for Ag Preserve cancellation PAC 07004 is prepared by staff for this project. It covers the zone change, the vesting tentative map, and the final site plan. The Ag Preserve cancellation on this site was approved back in December of last year. This project, the single and multifamily development, were the alternative use that was considered as part of the cancellation, and that's why they were discussed and in that document. A Planning Commission hearing on this project was held on May 27, 2009. The Planning Commission acts in an advisory capacity to the board on zone change applications. They also act in advisory capacity to the board for subdivision maps outside of urban boundaries and all vesting tentative maps. The applicant was present and spoke in favor of the project. RMA staff spoke on technical issues related to park improvements and dedication of additional right-of-way needed on Avenue 312. These issues were to be incorporated into the conditions of approval. No one spoke in opposition to the project at the hearing. The Planning Commission adopted findings. They recommended that the Board of Supervisors find the addendum ND to be the appropriate environmental document and to approve the requested zone change, approve requested exceptions to the subdivision ordinance, and they're described in your packet, and approve vesting tentative map PM 804 with conditions which were also forwarded to the resolution. Site Plan Review Committee held a hearing on the multifamily portion of this project on June 26th. Again, the applicant spoke in favor of the project. No one spoke in opposition. The Site Plan Review Committee approved final site plan 56-unit multifamily development on lot 78. And it's subject to a condition that it's only operative if the zone change and map are approved by the board. There are alternatives to the request in your agenda item. Summarizing these, the board could choose to approve the zone change and the vesting tentative map, but revise or add to findings and conditions recommended by the board and or proposed by staff. Or your board could choose to deny the zone change and the map. This alternative would preclude development of the proposed development on the site. Your board could choose to refer the matter back to the Planning Commission and staff for further review recommendations prior to you taking action. With that, the packet has a request from staff with regard to change of zone PZ 08-004. find that the addendum negative declaration is the appropriate environmental document, rezone the subject site from A1 to R1 and R2, shown on the draft ordinance map, and adopt the findings as shown in your agenda item request. And with regard to the tentative map, vesting tentative map TM 804, again, adopt the addendum negative declaration as the appropriate document, and approve the subdivision as described in your agenda item request. That concludes my report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff, board?
I have a question.
Yes.
The Williamson Act, has that been addressed as to the penalty?
Yes, they've made their payment.
Okay, they made the payment. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Only one I would have, the multifamily is gated like the other one self-help runs?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address item number 4, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, while they're coming forward, just to comment on something which Mr. Sheeter brought up, I just bring this up as a policy standpoint. The state is taking away our subvention on Williamson Act contracts, which is $3.2 million for Tulare County this year, but it won't prevent them from receiving a $187,500 cancellation fee, which goes to the state of California. So just a little caveat I thought we should mention this morning.
Thank you. The state giveth and the state taketh away. More taketh away than giveth, I guess. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Tom Collishaw, Vice President, Self-Help Enterprises. Our offices are at 8445 West Elowin Court in Visalia. We're thrilled to be here today to get to this point, to work again in partnership with the county to provide much-needed housing opportunities for working people, in this case in the Goshen area. This important project will provide 56 affordable rental units, as well as 77 opportunities for home ownership for low-income people in the area through our self-help housing program. This really is the next step because we have a highly successful, it's already been referred to, Goshen Village 1 that has been operating for a number of years successfully in the area. And this adds to, and the need has been, and demand has been great. That project's been filled since the day it opened, essentially. Chris Crawford is also here with Lane Engineers, and they are our civil engineer, and he's available to answer any technical questions. I did have a few comments. We've appreciated the staff's approach and assistance on this project, particularly as it relates to our use of the density bonus. I wanted to mention that the concessions that we're asking in the density bonus, they're not new. We've done them in the past in projects, single-family projects in Poplar, Orosi, Rich Grove, in multifamily projects in Early Mart, Orosi, Cutler, and the earlier Goshen project. So the difference this time was that we were able to do those through a concession process rather than a variance process that we would have to go through, which was cumbersome. So we do appreciate the staff's help on the density bonus request that we made. I did want to point out one of the conditions that we'd like to ask a slight variation in. Condition number, well, I'll mention two conditions. The first is condition 28, which has to do with the Caltrans fee. We have recent information, actually in the last 24 hours, that fee will be less. We were negotiating a lesser fee, at least partially because we're doing an affordable project with Caltrans. Staff is aware of that number, and I believe that we are asking for that to be changed. I believe Roberto can... thanks, Roberto.
I meant to mention that in my report that, yes, we did receive yesterday a letter from Caltrans that they had reviewed the latest traffic study and had adjusted the fair pro rata amount for the impacts of this project. The condition number 28 as written does provide for flexibility, it says, or as determined by Caltrans. I don't know that an actual adjustment to the condition is necessary. It does mention an amount in there, but it says or as determined by Caltrans. So,
This is actually or an amount calculated by Caltrans District 6. So
Yeah.
that flexibility is already there.
Great. Just wanted to confirm that. Appreciate that, Roberto. The other condition I wanted to speak specifically about is condition number 34. And we did make a request for an alteration at the Planning Commission level. This has to do with the remainder piece that borders Avenue 312, Riggin Road, and attempts to create a waiver of access for any future development. One of the things that we wanted to mention, we don't have any specific development proposals. We, in concert with staff, envision that as potential commercial use or some type of quasi-commercial use in the future. We are talking to one potential user right now, Family Health Care Network, but they're in the very early stages of considering that as a development project. When you take into account that condition 35 was also added, asking for an additional 12 feet for future right-of-way on the Riggin Road access. The combination of those two things, asking for that and then waiving any future access when we don't really know what the development proposals are going to look like, we don't think it's correct to basically provide that waiver of access and record that at this point. There was some language added that said in the future you can consider other approaches to the access question, but we still think it's premature to place that kind of a restriction on that property. Also, given that your board will have complete control over any future development decisions there. So we are asking that language for the recordation of a waiver of access to be eased today. The only other thing to mention,
If I can, as I look at the site plan map, though, the piece labeled remainder is the 4.87 acres to the extreme far north, correct?
yes, sir.
And it's limited access from 312, which is the road to the extreme south of the property.
No, that would be Riggin as we understand it. So it's
It says
bordering on the north.
the way I read 34.
It's 310 on the south. That's 310. 312 is on top. That's another thing.
Okay, I apologize. The print is so small, does it look like a 2 instead of a 0 on mine?
agreed, it is very small.
Okay, is what they're requesting appropriate?
Yes, they're requesting 12 feet of additional right-of-way on the south side of Avenue 312, which is the Riggin Avenue alignment. This was discussed at the Planning Commission, and Community Development, redevelopment staff spoke that based on current traffic models, that connection is going to become quite busy, especially as they improve the interchange at Highway 99 and Betty Drive, and that was the motivation for the additional right-of-way to provide for a 4-lane road with a median, and the same reason for limitation on access was to keep it as an arterial type road in the future.
Well, it looks to me as though there's the same type of open. It says, however, access to Avenue 312 may be revisited through analysis of a future development project proposal involving the remainder parcel. It looks like that door is already unlocked and ready to be opened, isn't it?
Mr. Chairman, I think what they're requesting is, rather than have a definitive decision made today that would have to be reopened, that it would just be left open as a question for future development. And so it's more of a semantic issue, I suspect, but the idea would be that, and frankly, I need to reveal that I met with the organization, and as they were speaking to a proposed tenant of this piece of property, and this issue did come up. But I think what they're saying this morning, they're just requesting, they're not asking for permission for access, they're just asking that this be revisited at a future time if and when they have a tenant on the property.
That's correct, because right now the condition reads that we would be recording a waiver of access with the map.
Do we have proposed alternate language then?
well, it could just be ignored. I mean, it
Just
could be
take-
deleted, it could be deleted
delete
from it because
34.
it just becomes an issue to be resolved later in the future.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's an issue that needs to be resolved now, because if you resolve it later and we take the road and the property owner claims that you're diminishing its commercial value because of the access, it has potential to increase the value of that strip of the right-of-way at a future date. So I think we're trying to protect Reagan's Avenue because of we see that this road is going to be widened substantially and that it will be a thoroughfare.
And actually, Mr. Chairman, my understanding was that when we had this meeting, that the additional dedication is actually sufficient to provide not a 4-lane road, but actually create a 6-lane road. This would be created I think they already have the 4-lane. I think is already in ownership, and this additional property would actually create an additional lane to the south. So it's more of a 6-lane situation, not a 4-lane.
Or a possible turning lane of some type.
Yeah.
I think the only point I think is that we had a long conversation about this, and I said, I'm not an engineer. I can see why the county is trying to protect this right of way and not want to have people trying to come in and off of this property, and look at the intersection. But I said, I'm not an engineer, and I think this is not here today as a proposed project. This is here as a rezone, and it's almost like it's sort of premature, perhaps, to have made this determination before we actually have a study done of the traffic impacts and so forth. I suspect access is not going to be granted, but I just think that that's something that could be decided in the future. I don't think it has to be decided today. That's the only point.
Okay. Anything else?
Just one other thing to add on that. The 12-foot additional dedication came up fairly late in the game, and the fact of the matter is we probably would have designed differently if we knew about that 12-foot take earlier. And so it really came fairly late in the game, and that's one of the reasons we think that with that take that it would be fair to await development proposals, which will come your way before ultimately answering that question. So one just last thing to mention is we have already submitted our first financing application for the rental project in this project, and we noticed one of the alternatives would be to refer the project back to Planning Commission. I'll just mention that to be competitive in that process, we would rely on an approval of this project prior to August 17th, or else we would not be competitive in that application or even have a chance to compete for low-income housing tax credits. So wanted to mention that as well. Other than that, thank you for your time and your support. Thanks.
Anyone else wishing to address the board during this public hearing portion?
Mr. Chairman, I wondered if the staff if they had any further comments about the easement issue on 312 or access issue.
Staff would recommend that the condition remain as worded. That does provide for some future analysis, but it provides a certain amount of certainty at this time.
William Hayter, Assistant Director, Tulare County Resource Management Agency. I'd just like to add that, yes, you are correct. We are planning for a 6-lane facility in the future. We want to preserve that right to develop that and not have to acquire the additional right-of-way against developed property in the future. And we're looking at a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Therefore, we'd like to keep the access as limited as we possibly can. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Commissioners, Chris Crawford with Lane Engineers for Self-Help. I just wanted to say, with the issue that Bill brings up with Reagan Avenue, this is not the last approval that's going to go through the county to figure out where drive approaches are going to be placed on Reagan. So at the absolute minimum, what's going to happen is it's going to have to go back to the Site Plan Review Committee over at the county, and they're going to have to approve those drive approach locations. So leaving it blank right now doesn't exactly guarantee anybody's going to have access off that street. So, and if it does turn commercial, special. I mean, you're talking zone changes and other approvals through the county, so leaving it open right now is not saying to somebody that you're going to be able to have access and a drive approach on Reagan Avenue.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Item number 4. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for additional questions of staff and/or resolution.
Chairman, I believe I'm comfortable with the recommendation of staff concerning that one particular issue. It does leave open the opportunity for future discussions, whether or not there will be access. I question whether it will be possible given the intended use of that particular property, and there is access near an intersection with potential of protection of that intersection as an access point. So I would move approval of the all of the conditions that have been proposed.
Second.
Moved by Worthily, second by Ashita. Cast your votes. So approved. Thank you. We will now move to item number 5. I think Mr. Brady is up to bat again, which is a request by Resource Management Agency to amend general plan, case number GPA 09001, also addressing zoning and mitigated negative declaration. While you're setting up, we might make our disclosures at this time, board. I did receive a letter late yesterday from a Joseph Hauser, which I did read yesterday, and each of us has received from Resource Management Agency a breakdown of comments that were received during the Planning Commission. We've not received the answers to those, but we did receive a synopsis of what was said and the points that were raised.
Chairman, I have received 3 different emails from people in opposition to this project. I've reviewed those. I've responded to the 3 of them, basically requesting that they be here and make their points made today, and also suggesting they might want to meet with the project proponent. I have not met with the project proponent as to this project. I have been on a project similar to this that was created by the project proponent in the city of Woodlake, and that's my disclosures this morning.
I have also received emails on this issue, and I've read them, and that's as far as all I've done is read the emails.
And I too would like to disclose that I have received several emails and I have read them, and I will be making my decision today based on information presented here during the public hearing. I'd like to disclose that. And also I have met with the project applicant not regarding this project, but just happened to meet him at another event where this project was mentioned. But again, all decisions will be made based on information presented today. So.
All disclosures having been almost made, yes?
Well, I had some emails also, and I've read them and putting them into the mix of things. And
I believe staff or our clerk has been given copies of those emails as well. Okay, Mr. Brady.
Good morning again, Chairman Cox, Supervisors, Roberto Brady, Resource Management. This item is a application for a general plan amendment and a zone change. The applicant is the Corporation for Better Housing. Project site is located southwest corner of Avenue 327 and State Route 216, which is the Road 160 alignment in Ivanhoe. The applicant proposes to build the Ivanhoe Family Apartments, which is 80 units in 5 walk-up style buildings and a clubhouse, 6 buildings total, and open space. Middle here and here and here. It's hard to read, but it says hot lot there, and it shows some picnic tables and so forth. Over here is drainage basin. This requires a final site plan to be approved by the Site Plan Review Committee if this zone change and general plan amendment are approved. The subject site is currently designated commercial in the Ivanhoe Community Plan. Here is the site, and the bold dark boundary is the Ivanhoe urban development boundary. High-density residential designation as described in the Ivanhoe Plan is proposed. The 4.57 acre site is currently zoned C2SR, General Commercial Site Plan Combining. Surrounding parcels are zoned R1, the west, C2, and AE20. R3 multiple family residential zoning is proposed. This aerial photograph shows the current land use, single family residential to the west, south, grocery store to the north, a church to the southeast. I think it's still vineyards to the east, railroad right of way. In addition to the land use designation in the Ivanhoe Community Plan, the applicant is also requesting an exception to the following policy in the Ivanhoe Community Plan. High-density residential development shall not overburden any one quadrant or neighborhood of Ivanhoe, nor shall a site exceed 2 acres in size or a maximum of 30 multiple family dwellings units per site, provided, however, that the foregoing shall not apply to existing and or approved high-density residential land uses. This is a brand-new use, so this policy would apply. It's 80 units on 4.57 acres. Therefore, the project is not compatible with that policy. However, the adopted policies of the 2003 housing element encourage development of multifamily or mixed-use development in commercial districts if affordable units are provided. The construction of approximately 80 low-income units would be beneficial and consistent with Program 5.22 of the county's housing element. The high-density residential land use designation allows 28 units or less per acre, and the proposed project site is under 28 units per acre. It's about, I think, 17.5. I calculated based on the gross acreage. The applicant therefore asserts that an exception to policy, this policy is appropriate for this project and in the public interest. What's being looked at here is an exception for this particular project based on the circumstances. The policy itself would be maintained in place until such time as the Ivanhoe Plan were revisited as a whole to be considered anytime a multifamily project proposed. In terms of CEQA compliance for this project, an initial study and proposed mitigated negative declaration were circulated, which included project description of the general plan amendment, zone change, and the final site plan. Those considered by the Site Plan Review Committee. One mitigation measure proposed regarding impacts of the San Joaquin kit fox, endangered species. Other issues discussed but determined to be less than significant were air quality, land use planning with regard to the Ivanhoe Plan policies, and transportation. With regard to transportation, an estimated 480 daily trips would be generated by the proposed development, with approximately 45 AM peak hour trips and 55 PM peak hour trips, according to Trip Generation Manual. This is below the Caltrans traffic impact study thresholds. State Route 216 is designated an arterial road in the Ivanhoe Community Plan. Annual average daily traffic volume on State Route 216 near the project site was 4,850 in 2002 according to PCAG traffic counts, and 4,200 according to Caltrans 2007 traffic counts. Caltrans indicated that the generated trips from the project would have minimal impact on State Route 216, but that improvements would be required along the frontage, including curb, gutter, and 5-foot minimum width sidewalk. And this is part of the site plan, including also the frontage of the property on Avenue 327. Planning Commission held public hearing on the general plan and zone change on May 27th and June 10th, 2009. Testimony was read both for and against the proposal, as summarized in resolutions 8447 and 8448, which were included in your agenda item packet. I'll go through some of the comments that were made in opposition to the project. One, that there would be no assurance that former convicts would not reside at the complex. It was pointed out, an LA Times article cited Ivanhoe as one of the highest concentrations of gang members per capita anywhere in the state. Gangs would take over the apartments. That the proposed multifamily development would worsen traffic problems on Avenue 327. Like to, the conclusions of the initial study, that there was no counts for Avenue 327. However, whatever they are, they're not enough to really have any impact on State Route 216. Therefore, they are not very large in themselves, although they may seem to residents of the property to be traffic problems there. It was pointed out that there's a history of trouble at other apartments in Ivanhoe. Mentioned that I think the next biggest concentration of apartments is to the east of this site down, if you keep going, I'm sorry, to the west, if you go west on Avenue 312. Here's the site, and over here is a concentration of apartments. I didn't count the number of units there. They're a 2-story style apartments. Based on that information and looking at an aerial photograph, I estimate it'd be about 50 to 60 units there, on probably less area than this project is being proposed, so the concentration there is the same or higher density than on the project. The 2-story design of the proposed apartment building would interfere with privacy of adjacent properties. Point out that the Planning Commission recommended a wall be installed along the south and west boundaries of the property, which is where it would be adjacent to existing single-family development. The applicant incorporated that into the site plan that was considered by the Site Plan Review Committee. The wall would be 6 feet high, which is the maximum currently allowed under the zoning ordinance. There'd be about an 80-foot distance between the rear of those single-family properties and the fronts of the proposed buildings. It was stated that there would be a loss of property values in the area because of the apartments, that there should instead be single-family residential development. It was pointed out that in a recent high rain event, the wastewater treatment plant holding pond had to be sandbagged to prevent overflow, indicating a lack of reserve capacity. Generally, it was questioned if Ivanhoe has the infrastructure adequate to support development. The multifamily project would be more children in the streets, potentially exposed to gang activity and other hazards, that there's no police presence at night in the community, that there was a 160-unit project proposed at to the south near Jasmine Avenue. They wondered if it was approved. Development would compound impact to this project on the community. The only project I could find was one from around 2005, 2006, which was a general plan amendment in that area, which was proposing single-family development, and it was turned down. Agricultural issues were, I think, one of the primary things that led to that decision. that there should be meetings scheduled in the evenings so more members of the community could attend, that there are no jobs available in Ivanhoe. Residents of the development would have to do lots of driving for work, shopping, and services, thereby increasing traffic problems, and that development would negatively affect the highway as a scenic corridor. You do have a nice view of the Sierras to the east. Letter was read aloud and submitted to the records, and I believe I submitted to the clerk copies of this letter to you. The proposed apartment complex is too large for Ivanhoe and will increase crime in the area. Serious crimes occurred at the other Ivanhoe apartments last year. States that affordable housing for gangs moving from Southern California would be created, and that while money is made by people involved in the project, it's not a good deal for residents of Ivanhoe. The letter asked those involved in the project would welcome an identical apartment complex in their neighborhood. Along with the letter, a petition with signatures of 18 residents from Edmonston Avenue, which is south of the site, was submitted in opposition to the project. The applicant, in response to these issues raised by those opposed, commented that tenancy in the affordable housing development was subject to competitive application process, including checks of previous tenancies, criminal record, and credit histories, and that Corporation for Better Housing must comply with all fair housing laws, but did not intend to rent to those with a criminal record. The development would have a full-time on-site manager and 2 full-time maintenance staff. There's a curfew for residents. No alcohol is allowed to be consumed outside the individual residence. The applicant also indicated that they had worked with Dennis Keller, the Ivanhoe Public Utility District engineer, to assure that the water system meets fire flow standards, and had agreed to install upgrades and lower the number of units proposed to match infrastructure capacity. Based on this, the Planning Commission considered public testimony and made findings regarding the issues raised. The Commission, as I mentioned that a solid wall be incorporated into the plan along the south and west edges of the property. It actually goes around the east side of the drainage basin, which you have wrought iron fence, as would the street side frontages of the development. The development then is completely enclosed and gated. The gates are locked. The applicant could give more details on that. I think in essence, the Planning Commission found that although they acknowledged the issues existing in Ivanhoe brought up by the residents, that this project would be of benefit to the community in providing affordable housing and a stable environment. The Planning Commission recommended that the board certify the mitigated negative declaration and approve the general plan amendment and zone change. As I mentioned, the Site Plan Review Committee held a hearing on the final site plan on June 26th. The committee considered comments received both for and against the project. Most of the comments were similar to the ones that the residents had made to the Planning Commission. There was also a comment that the project was too large to fit on the site, and also one that children would be in close proximity to the drainage basin site. I looked at a recent reference book, the Planning and Urban Design Standards, and based on this type of apartment development called a walk-up garden-style apartment, that the density of 17.5 units per gross acre is right at the kind of the low edge of that type of density typical for that type of development, which ranges from about 15 to 40 units per acre. So based on that, it's not surprising that they're able to put 80 units on that site, provide for more parking than is required under our ordinance, and still have room for several substantial open space areas on the property. The Site Plan Review Committee approved the final site plan and subject to a condition that the general plan and zone change be approved. There are alternatives to the request in your packet. Just to summarize, the board could choose to approve the general plan and zone change, but revise and to add to the findings adopted by the Planning Commission, proposed by staff. Your board could deny the general plan amendment and zone change. This would preclude the proposed development. Or your board could choose to refer the matter to staff and Planning Commission for further review, recommendation prior to taking. Resource Management Agency requests that your board, with regard to the general plan amendment, GPA 09001, adopt the mitigating negative declaration and certify it as the adequate document for this project. Amend the Ivanhoe Community Plan land use designation for the subject site from commercial to high-density residential, and an exception to policy B1F, allowing a multifamily project greater than 30 units on 2 acres for this specific project. The request is set forth in your agenda item request. With regard to the zone change, also certify the mitigated negative declaration and change the zoning on the 4.57 acre site from C2SR to R3, also as set forth request in your agenda item. I'll skip back to this. There was a comment that people were not informed about the hearings. What staff did was follow planning and zoning and CEQA laws with regard to public notice. This map shows the 300-foot radius boundary for notice of public hearings, and notices were sent to the addresses of record with the assessor's office for those parcels. Notices were also published of the Planning Commission, Site Plan Review Committee, and Board of Supervisors hearing in the Visalia Times Delta at least 10 days prior to each of those hearings. I think that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Yes.
Just one question. I note that in the staff comments that the complex originally was designed for 96 units and was reduced to 80 units.
Yes.
After consultation with the Ivanhoe Public Utility District.
Yes.
Confirm that it's been reduced. And then in looking at the architectural drawing, it's my understanding then that when it's completed, the project would still have 56% open space. That means after we're taking away the parking and the actual buildings themselves, that there would be 56% open space on the property.
I'm not sure of that figure.
I'm just looking at the architectural drawing that's rendered here. So.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll first hear from those that are proposing the project. So the public hearing is open. Anyone wanting to speak in favor of this project, please step forward at this time.
Good morning. My name is Jake Lingo. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Corporation for Better Housing. I have prepared a slideshow. I'll try to keep it brief, but do want to answer some of the concerns and give some background on Corporation for Better Housing at this time. As I said, I want to give a brief background on Corporation for Better Housing, talk a little bit more about the Ivanhoe Family Apartments, but also talk about the social service programs that we run and talk about some of our management practices, and then at that time be available to any questions that the supervisors may have at that time. Primary objective of the Corporation for Better Housing is to eradicate poor and unsafe living conditions through the creation of vibrant communities designed to empower and enhance the lives of our residents. Corporation for Better Housing is a 501c3 not-profit corporation established in 1995. Currently, we have over 2,200 apartment units in 31 different developments throughout the state. We've got 308 currently under construction, and a large majority of these developments are here in the San Joaquin Valley. We have over 1,000 units that are in the San Joaquin Valley, including such areas as Woodlake, Parlier, Wasco, Bakersfield, and those are to name a few. I think at this time, it's important to note as well that of the over 2,500 units that are owned, maintained, or under construction, Corporation for Better Housing has never sold a unit. We come to be part of the neighborhood, to provide solutions and to be a good neighbor. Give a little bit of background about the project location. I know there are questions regarding that. It's been over probably 2 years ago that I came and first met with staff here at the county and wanted to help alleviate some of the need for affordable housing in the unincorporated rural areas of Tulare County. As we all know, Tulare County has more unincorporated rural areas. I think they're second in the state with these unincorporated type areas. So we saw a real need for this type of housing, quality, affordable housing, being offered at rents that are, commensurate with people's income. We first met with Dennis Keller and the Ivanhoe PUD, making sure that the project location was within the PUD boundary district. It was. We moved forward then and started to evaluate the capacity, both sewer and water, knowing that in some of the unincorporated areas, Dennis is the engineer for a lot of these areas. He understands the issues. We were able to obtain a will serve letter and find out that there was enough sewer and water, and that also leaves some capacity left in the system. We then contacted the fire department and wanted to ensure that the fire flows were strong enough in case that there were fire at the development. There was a letter received that the pressure at the site both met and exceeded the required fire flow. This was before we ever even put in an application for general plan amendment or zone change. Once we had these issues figured out and we felt positive, we took this forward and began working with planning staff. What we then started to do is to work on our site plan. We've put together a site plan that has over 2.5 acres of open space. We've created a buffer on both the west and the south to be away from the R1 units, taking into consideration not only our residents, but the future residents that we're going to hopefully be neighbors with. That setback from the fence to the nearest unit is 85 feet. I wanted to talk now about the unit amenities, about really the quality that we're trying to provide for the potential residents. We provide granite countertops in all of the units. We have Energy Star rated appliances, upgraded carpet, cabinetry, Armstrong vinyl linoleum. As you said, we own and maintain these for the long run, and we want them to stand up to the test of time, but also we want to give our residents a quality product that they can be proud of. This here is a picture of our community room in Santa Paula. As you can see on the site plan, there's a proposed community room for this development as well, and it's a part of what we do with all of our developments. What we try to do is to create an area where we can provide social service activities. It's a big part of who we are and what we're trying to bring to the community. We feel it's important for residents, especially the children, to have the opportunity to better themselves, to have activities after school, to come and to feel safe, and to be involved with such things as the after-school homework club. We have GED and ESL courses. We provide computer training. We also have health referral services. This is free of charge to all the residents. I think another thing that we'd like to state is, in some of the other communities that we go into, we understand that there's an extensive need for more social service activities, to have an area where people can come after school and be involved with these things. What we've done in those areas is not only open these courses to the residents of our apartment development, but also the residents of the community, where it is feasible. What we do is we go out and we partner with the other nonprofits in the area, community leaders, the county, and we look to bring these types of social service activities to start to make a change in the community as a whole. This is a picture of one of our computer labs, which is also will be in our development, provide study areas, and then there's also a community kitchen, so if there is some type of a luncheon held or something with community members that they can provide food as well. This is a picture from one of our community classrooms in Bakersfield. Really kind of a proud note for Corporation for Better Housing. This community room here, we've graduated over 1,000 individuals from our GED and our ESL programs. Again, we don't have 1,000 residents that live at that development, but we've invited people from the community to come in and participate and to try to help in those areas. From the site planning side, we have a tot lot, barbecue, picnic area, perimeter fencing, quality landscaping. We really try to create an environment where families can feel safe to have their children and enjoy their free time with them. And then I want to talk about really one of the most critical aspects of this development, and that's the management. It's something that we take very seriously. On site here, we will have 2 full-time management staff members. These aren't simply key holders that show up and leave, but they're residents that will live on the property. They work in the office every day, and they deal with tenant issues, with applications, with making sure that the day-to-day operations are going smoothly. We will also have, they also are in charge of the social service programs that we talked about and that are so important. We also have full-time maintenance staff. Those are in addition, and those make sure that the grounds are taken care of properly, that if there's a problem in any one of the units that they're addressed. We then have regional management. As we said, we have 1,000 units in the San Joaquin Valley. They will be dropping in on weekly visits, making sure that any needs that aren't being met will be, and that they have support from a corporate level. We have an in-house asset management team as well. I'd like to talk briefly as well about the applicant screening process, because it was brought up in the comments from Roberto that were expressed at the Planning Commission. We do extensive background checks on all of our applicants. That includes not only a credit check, but they have to provide past rental history. So we call, check, make sure that they don't have evictions and so forth. And I think one of the most important things to note is that we do a background check on their, if they have any criminal record. And we do not lease apartment units to people that have been convicted of a felony. We stated this at the Planning Commission, wanted to reiterate it now because there has been a substantial amount of comments and questions regarding it, but that's what we've maintained from the get-go. In addition to that, if anyone is found being involved in gangs or drugs, we have a one-strike policy, and because there are federal funds being invested into this development in the form of 9% tax credits, we can utilize the one-strike penalty. The eviction begins as soon as they are found guilty of being involved with gang activities or drugs, and that's something that we stand by and we're not going to bend on. In closing, I want to briefly just talk about revitalization and the changing of neighborhoods. CBH has been involved in many revitalization efforts across the state. We know that it isn't easy, and it takes dedication from many stakeholders. Not one person's going to come in and change the community. This development is going to be investment of over $15 million into Ivanhoe. It's $15 million. It's a very large investment. We're talking going and starting to improve some of the streets, put sidewalks on the perimeter of our development. We all understand there's not a lot of sidewalk space in Ivanhoe. We're trying to change things. In addition to that, the county, the PUD, they will be collecting impact fees. This goes towards maintaining the infrastructure and hopefully trying to improve upon that. In addition, what this has done is it's created dialogue between the county and the PUD. Dennis Keller and Lori Mercer, who both have worked very hard on the development, are now working together on a CDBG application of $900,000 to try to help improve the infrastructure even beyond what it is now. We will also, if successful with this general plan amendment and zone change, be moving forward with the county for a home fund application in the amount of $2 million. So, as you can see, this development has been a catalyst in more ways than one. In order to change communities, in order to revitalize them, you have to have new development. We know that Ivanhoe has needs. We feel that Ivanhoe needs new quality, affordable housing. Again, I want to take the time to really thank staff for all the tremendous amount of hard work that they've put into trying to bring this development to fruition. I know at this time that there are many questions from the board that I'd be happy to answer, but I would just like to thank you for your time, and I'm available for any that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Lingo?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Hi, Mr. Lingo. I wanted to ask you about any water conservation mechanisms, such as the ones that you have in Sierra Village. Are there going to be any planned for this as well? Because I know that was...
Yes, we always try to incorporate green building techniques into all of our developments. We understand that water is an issue. We have been, working closely regarding, there is the drainage sump on the northwestern portion of the property. So, we understand that there are those issues. We try to provide vegetation and so forth that doesn't consume a lot of water. And again, we try to meet as many green building standards as possible.
Any other questions for Mr. Lingo?
Yeah.
Lingo, I know you have constructed and operating a facility in Wood Lake now for a period of, how long has it been?
We opened at the beginning of the year, achieved full occupancy almost immediately thereafter. It's about 2 months after.
Have you had any management issues in the community of Wood Lake in terms of your residents?
At this time, no. In fact, I had a discussion with John Zapalak, who is the chief of police, and I in Wood Lake last week. We've tried to keep close connections with them. Am I saying that there will never ever be a problem in Wood Lake? Of course not. But that's what we try to do, is we try to create those relationships up front. But at this time, we've had no problems, we had no issues, and we don't expect to have any. If there are some, we will follow up with them. And if you're done with that question, I want to follow up on Mr. Vanderpool's as well. A lot of as we were talking about water conservation, I don't know if I mentioned, but all of the appliances and so forth, energy rated, low flow, etc. So just wanted to add to that as well.
Other questions of Mr. Lingo? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one thing I wanted to confirm with the applicant was with this Roberto Brady, Resource Management Agency, that given the design of the project, wall and fencing and the gates, that this is in effect a gated community, that access from the public is through the clubhouse office building.
That is correct. We will have perimeter fencing. What we are proposing is a solid wall on the fence side where the R1 residential is, so that would be on the west and the south, and then on the north and the east we would be providing wrought iron fencing so that you can see through it. It doesn't completely close off. We'll have some nice architecture, landscaping. We want that to be, a nice, still look nice when you drive in, have new development right there on the, when you're entering into Ivanhoe. But we do have security fencing. We really, community to community, depend how we address that. And some of the developments, we're able to have the gates open during the day and then at a certain time close them. It just depends on that community. But to have the ability to close them off if there's something going on that, there's problems going on inside the community, we want to provide that safety for our residents. That's the number one goal.
I have one further question. Mr. Lingo, I know that the Corporation for Better Housing has been in service or been in existence since 1995. How about your property manager? Do they have a long history of existence and good project management?
Good point. I probably should have addressed that earlier. And I would probably defer to my brother, Ben Lingo, on the year that we became in contract with Beacon Property Management. But Beacon Property Management is out of the Ontario area. They manage our entire portfolio. It's about, I want to say about 70% of their portfolio. So obviously we have tight relations with them. They pay attention when we talk to them because it is such a large part of their portfolio. But really the reason that we've been with them now for a number of years is it's been the the good working relationship. They understand that the most important part is the management and to be able to communicate whatever issues are happening on the property site. And then if I could at least ask how long we have been in contract with Beacon Property Management. It's my brother, Ben Lingo.
Good afternoon, members of the board. We have used Beacon with our entire portfolio, I'm thinking for going on now 5 years. It's been a very good working relationship. Beacon has received many accommodations and are accredited with all of the various state and federal agencies and programs that we work within. And one of the things that Jake pointed out that I'll just reiterate, one of the reasons that we have gone with Beacon is that they are not a massive nationwide organization. When we have a problem, we can call the owner. Just like if there's a problem at this development, I would hope that the Sheriff's Department, county staff, county supervisors would call us. We're able to get straight to the top management with them, and it's been a real hallmark of our relationship and our developments. These developments will be maintained to be affordable for 55 years. Really, where we have an exposure to risk, it's with management. That's why we dedicate so much of our budget and also corporate level time to that. We've had a good working relationship with Beacon. If there are issues, they will be addressed, and it's very key. Thank you.
Any other questions of? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the project? Okay, seeing none, this time we will open up the comment period to those that would speak in opposition to the project. There will be if you do represent many people, please say so, and then you can raise your hand, or you can tell us how many people that you are representing. If you have a petition, please deliver it to the clerk of the board. Michelle, would you raise your hand? She would be the person that would receive any written comment or copies of petitions. And so please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and we will, if there are dozens of you that would like to speak, I only have 2 written requests, but we want all those that would like to address the board to please step forward. Again, step forward, state your name and address, and we will have a 3-minute timer on each commenter. And you can use either microphone, they both work.
My name is Robert Harden. I live at 16089 Avenue 328. I Googled on Google Scholar public housing. This is a dead subject. Tremendous amounts were written about it in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. The projects do not work. This project with granite countertops is a dressed-up project. The density is unbelievable there. 400 people on 4 acres. They could ring that 4.5-acre parcel holding hands. They couldn't stand along the 600-foot wall, shoulder to shoulder. You have no picture of the density of people that are there. That project does not connect to anything. Between there and Ivanhoe School, the little road that's there, only about 1/3 of it is there any sidewalk. A lot of it where there's curb and no sidewalk, it's 18 feet to the center line, and cars are parked there all the time. That leaves 9 feet for people to walk on in the roadway, as well as the trucks to pass. A lot of between the project and 328, there is no sidewalk. There's a 5-way intersection, a railroad track, and another diagonal road there. You walk by Save More Market, all you're doing is walking through the parking lot where the cars nose into the store. You're walking right through. Groups of kids, how will they get to Ivanhoe School? Little kids, that's the way they're going to go. On this Google Scholar, little bit of research. Gangs replace families as the dominant social issue. Crime and Public Policy by Jay Breakwythe. There are a few positive role models in the barrio. James Diego Vigil on his book Projects in East LA. Despite all the good intentions, housing projects are overwhelmed by barrio patterns. Your planning department does not believe the empirical evidence. There's just nothing written about public housing compared to in the past 20 years. Now there's kind of a revitalization. All problems do not have simple solutions. Often unintended consequences outweigh the perceived benefits. 80 units, 200 bedrooms, 400 people, little impact, dropped out on an unincorporated farming community. I went and visited the Wood Lake project. It's on 4 acres.
There are 46 parking places. That isn't very high density of people. It's within 500 feet of a park. It's within 600 feet of a shopping center. It's within probably 600 feet of the police department. It's 100 feet off of Valencia Boulevard, the main street. It has an entirely different personality than this problem, than this project. This project, we do not have a police department. The jails that are going to be probably reducing their population in the next year or so. Wouldn't you say? Is that a fair assessment? Your budget is not going to get better. We need a police department, or you cannot ship Visalia's problems out to Ivanhoe. We do not receive any, there is no retail in Ivanhoe, except for drugs, legal, and farm supplies and food. And the food is mostly Quickie Mart or little bitty stores. This project probably would help them, but it's not going to give us a real supermarket. We're too close to Walmart. We're too close to Visalia. I thought you were supposed to look out for the carbon footprint of a project. Everybody here will commute. This does not give you, there are no jobs in Ivanhoe. Jobs are just none. There is no industry in Ivanhoe except for farming, and we work diligently to reduce the number of people we have out there. They're too expensive for our competitive world market. Housing is already cheap in Ivanhoe, but there's always a shortage of free housing, which is basically what you're proposing. Of course there's a shortage of it. Now, where the clients are coming from, they'll say it's Ivanhoe, but even if they come from Ivanhoe, you're still going to increase the population of a town that is not functioning at this point. Webster's Dictionary, ghetto, a quarter of a city in which members of a minority live because of social, legal, or economic pressure. Call this project this government-subsidized housing project confining a single socioeconomic class in an area outside of city limits. This is a ghetto by definition. Don't lose fact of the density of this project. When the general plan was put into Ivanhoe with all its public hearings and dog and pony show, I mean, it was just, oh, Ivanhoe, you get what you want, but we're going to write this general plan. It gave everybody what they wanted. The only objections were where the planners filled in with the R3, because Ivanhoe knew that did not fit with the personality of the town, and there was no reason for it there. And this is, and now you're overriding that general plan amendment, or the general plan, and needing to change it for this, I believe, absurd high-density housing plunked in a rural area that is not a city, that does not have city services. The planner that talked about the apartment to the west, he really should have known the size, the acreage, and the density, and not just conjectured. A year ago, there was a shooting down there. It went on for, it was, you know, many, many shots, 2 guys. There are no witnesses in Ivanhoe. People do not identify people in Ivanhoe. Those are gangs. You know why gang members look like they do? So you know they're soldiers. So you don't screw with them. Ivanhoe, the sheriff's department tries. They do not have the manpower it takes to suppress the gangs in Ivanhoe. The gangs are not going away in Ivanhoe. They are expanding, as near as I can tell. The number of shootings is going up all the time. A drive-by just a month ago on 328, which is at some point a main artery of the county, I would suppose. This is right at the intersection of a state highway and Avenue 328, which turns into the Ivanhoe Woodlake Highway, which in the future, I believe in the next 20 years, will be a major artery. I'm looking at the long term. My nose is really out of the joint because Pete Giada, when he bought this property from me 25 years ago, told me point blank, definitely this would not be R3. He was developing it R1. Now, he saved out a site for the store. He has since sold his store in town in Ivanhoe. He has sold his house. He has left Ivanhoe, and now this is his parting gift to Ivanhoe. What does your planning department want to inflict apartments, worse yet, a 60 styles project dressed up with granite countertops on Ivanhoe, who said almost unanimously in general plan discussions they did not want multifamily units.
Mr. Harding?
They have created a ghetto with minimum law enforcement and no infrastructure or government. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have two folks that filled out paperwork that are kind of following the rules here. I have a Beatrice Coleman and an Erica Payne.
Erica Payne.
Erica Payne.
Erica Payne, 15944 Avenue 327 in Ivanhoe. I'm here to speak on behalf of 57 people who did petition to stop this project, and I have turned that petition into your clerk today.
Thank you.
The Ivanhoe Public Utilities has already asked us to raise our rates just after we found out about this project, so we kind of believe that it has something to do with this project. So we're kind of upset about that. We can't afford what we're paying now because we don't earn enough to pay this kind of increase that they're going to be asking us for. We do not have the needed transportation in Ivanhoe. If we get people into this 80-unit apartment complex that do not have vehicles of their own, we have 2 buses that come in to the city daily, neither one of them before 8 o'clock, so they can't take a normal job, and only 1 bus that comes back into Ivanhoe after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they can't, of course, stay a full 8-hour shift in Visalia to do a normal job. If these people are on welfare, you are going to put a burden on the welfare system here in Tulare County, because we have a problem already where we do not have enough of our participants participating in the Welfare to Work program. We are going to be sanctioned for non-participation, and if they're living out in Ivanhoe, they're not going to be able to participate. There's nothing for them to do. They can't get into town to meet their required hours, and they can't meet their hours in Ivanhoe. There's not enough emergency services out in Ivanhoe. I believe 1 sheriff for Ivanhoe and 3 Rivers is just a little bit understaffed, and that's what we have right now. We have only a volunteer firefighting department, which is already stretched to its limits, and you're going to add 80 more units. My mother recently passed away because I called 911 and asked for an ambulance to come out and help her. It took them 35 minutes to get to me. She died in my house, waiting for services. You're going to add another 80 units with children that could have medical emergencies and no services for those medical emergencies. The streets are dangerous. There are no sidewalks. You have children walking towards traffic, hoping that these people that are driving their cars are safe. Avenue 327 has very high rate of traffic because of the apartment complex 3 blocks from where you're planning on putting this apartment complex. We are lucky, and I do mean lucky, if they are driving 50 miles an hour down our street, which is a 25-mile-an-hour zone because it's residential. We have children who play in those streets. No traffic evaluation has been done on 327 as to what's going to happen. We need to at least review what's really going to happen to the traffic on 327 and Road 160. The previous evaluations that they had on 160, they're not taking into consideration the trucks. We have a trucking company on 327, or on Road 160 between where we are and the Ivanhoe Elementary School that does their own trucking, plus they have a weigh station. So we have a lot of trucking in our community, and that is a danger to the children. They don't watch for the children. They can't see them. They're too small. And for my last comment, on the Ivanhoe Community Plan, I would hope that if you're going to make a change to that plan, that you talk to the entire community, not just the 300 feet. We're not the only ones that are going to be impacted by this. We have policy B1F for a reason. And I think that you need to talk to the entire community before you make such a major decision for them. Thank you.
Of a Beatrice Coleman. Beatrice Coleman, sir, come on forward. Go ahead and come on forward. Beatrice Coleman, I guess, left. Is she there?
My name is Vic Box. I live on Aspen Street in Ivanhoe. I'm a long-time member of Ivanhoe, active in the community. For your information, too, it might help you understand where I get some of the things I say. I'm on the board of directors of the Ivanhoe Public Utility District. I'm on the board of directors of the Memorial.
Sir, can you pull the microphone down to you a little bit?
I'm sorry, it sounded like I was talking loud. One thing important to me, too, is I'm very hard of hearing. So if you folks have anything to say to me, you're going to have to holler, because I lip read, and that's about the only way I get there. Let me go back to where I got started in this thing. There was 2 resource management meetings prior to this time that I know of. Apparently there was another one that I just found out today by looking on the board. Didn't attend that one. I wasn't invited to either one of the 2. Now, understand why I'm saying this, because I live with the Brown Act constantly in our board meetings. And if I don't, my lawyer just jumps right down my throat. I found out third hand on the first meeting, and I immediately went to look and see if it was posted in a public place as the Brown Act requires. I could not find any public place posted, okay? There was another meeting a couple of weeks after that. I found out fourth hand by various emails, and I also went and looked and had some other people look to see if we could find any posting of that meeting. In that case, it wasn't posted either. There's only a few people got information regarding that meeting, those 2 meetings, and those meetings involved, I believe, every citizen of Ivanhoe. But I don't believe it was properly identified. Now, this certainly is not the supervisors, because the supervisors have identified what they're doing, but these people in some ways work for you. I'm not sure just how it all works, but I know it gets down there somewhere. Okay. At the first meeting, there were people from Ivanhoe that spoke out against it. I was certainly one. There was one person there that spoke for it. At the end of the discussion, the vote surprised me because it's almost instantaneous. It was yes, all over. Although people spoke out against it, if I had been on that board, I would have said, hey guys, let's wait and talk this over and see what we're doing. At the second meeting, it was about the same thing, except there was no one at the second meeting that spoke out for it. That person apparently had changed their minds. Now I see that with all of the public, which not a lot of public was invited, that have opposed that, the resource management is recommending you folks vote to change that. I'm going to ask you for an awful lot of people who live in Ivanhoe. Many of them are not here. Let me tell you why they're not here. Many of them says, Vic, why are you bothering to go? The county's going to do what they want, and they don't pay attention to what Ivanhoe thinks. I don't believe that. I'm not going to believe that. There's many people in Ivanhoe who are saying they don't want this. What they want is a chance to develop their community. We don't know how, we don't know when, and we sure as hell don't know where the money's coming from. But adding more people to something that's fractured already, and these people here have got a pretty good organization. I think resource management chose the wrong spot in the wrong community. And I could go into a lot more detail on that, an awful lot. I've talked long enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Sean Payne. I live at 15944 Avenue 327. And on this particular issue, we have a development that is going to focus traffic out onto 327, which is an already heavily traveled street.
I do not believe proper surveys have been done. As to the issue of gangs and criminal activity, truly, all the best intentions of the organization that's planning to build these apartments are great, but you cannot keep people out of a public place. You cannot keep families out, and it's not the parents, it's the children that are the most likely gang members. True, you can check the criminal history of the parents, you can check the rental history of the parents, but what about the kids? What about the kids that act out, that are doing the damage, that are causing the problems, that are shooting at each other? We do not have continuous police enforcement. I wouldn't expect to have continuous police enforcement, but we don't even have reasonable police enforcement. A single sheriff's officer that comes through, if there's a problem and he can get there in a reasonable amount of time, is not police enforcement. That's a joke. As far as services otherwise, overburdened water, overburdened sewer, they've already had to reduce the number of units on the complex in order to allow for the complex to be built and still not overburden the system. But just because you're right at the edge doesn't mean you're not going to push it over the edge. We don't know what's going to happen. A more appropriate use for this space, if it's not commercial, would possibly have been for single-family residences. Admittedly, it would be a small number of single-family residences, but it would not burden the community nearly as much. Caltrans may have said that the number of families will result in traffic so light as to not go over the threshold for Road 160. I can't believe that's the case if you have 80 families, I assume 80 families, average of 1.7 cars per family. That's because most families do not have a single vehicle, they have two vehicles. And the reason they have two vehicles is because the husband works one place and the wife works somewhere else. With that many vehicles traveling at least twice a day to and from work, but come on, this is a community whose grocery store doesn't supply enough groceries even, well, it's basically a local mercantile Mexican market. The fact is the families are going to commute into town every day for groceries, gas, employment. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're coming up, we have found a set of keys in the foyer that has a Golden West schedule on it. So if you are missing keys, but please, the next person wishing to speak, please come up. But there are some keys. You would have been missing those a little bit more in a few minutes, huh? And both microphones work. You can use this one if you'd wish.
My name is Joseph Hauser, and I live at 15972 Edmonston Avenue. And I got to reiterate everything that's been said.
Sir, you don't have to.
Well, I mean, I have to agree with them all. Okay, so I'd like to.
And that would do.
Yeah, I didn't mean to agree. But, and I'd like to enter my letter into the record. And I'd just like to say that there's a lot of people out there that aren't here today. And it's because they all have to work. I'm retired, I don't have to work, so I'm here. And this property that we're talking about was made into C1 several years ago by the Board of Supervisors for Mr. Giada for his store. And we're all pretty happy with that, you know, because we needed one. All the years go by, nothing ever happened. in a community, like they all said, guns going off all the time. 7 years ago, we had to have a meeting out there, and everybody came, just about in the whole community, and put up, a pretty good argument about this trouble that's been going on. And nobody paid any attention to anything that goes on in that town until something like that happens. And then we got police protection. We got things going on in the community now. But it's all just kind of just dropped off. We're back down to one deputy that we share with all the way from Poplar to Three Rivers to Ivanhoe. See him maybe once a day, and everybody knows it, and they know when he's coming by. You talked about in the last presentation about Road 312 and how you're going to widen it to 6 lanes. Okay? Well, we've got 80 units in this development's proposed, and we've got a 2-lane road going by there. 216, Road 160, and 328, 2-lane road. And there's going to be a heck of an influx in traffic on this road. And there's going to be no police protection. And I don't think anybody's going to widen it. And everything is to make a buck, but there's nothing being done for the community. That's what this whole project is for. It's not for the development of the community and the betterment of the community. It's for somebody to make money. Mr. Giada, like I stated in my letter, owned that supermarket or store next door, and he made a lot of money out of it. And this is the thanks, that he gives Ivanhoe. All the people that went and patronized his store and everything, and made him a lot of money, and this is how he repays us. And I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to anybody around there. My property taxes are going to go down. Sean's property taxes are going to go down. Everybody around there, all their property taxes are going to go down. His is going to go up. His profit margin is going to go through the roof. And everything's fine. And I just hope you guys stop and think of this stuff, when you're making your decision. And I know the place has got to be developed. I'm getting tired of looking at the dirty old field back there, and there's got to be something put on it. Why can't they just continue with the single-family homes just like all the rest of the community does? Or maybe some duplexes. Or single level apartments, Not something that's so high dense. You're going to have 400 people on there with, probably 150 to 200 cars, and everybody's going to be jammed up, and the place is too tight anyway for half the people that are there. And all this is going to create a big problem for the community. And the store, you've got, like Bob said about the school, you've got, like I said, about the fire department. Fire department's a volunteer unit. No police protection. Sewer systems are going to hell. They're asking to raise our rates. I'm going to be asked to be paying part of the bill for this community for their sewage system. It's not right. Okay, thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. If you do, if you agree with something that's been said in the past, you do not need to repeat it. If you want to agree with someone, agree with them. You don't have to repeat it again and again and again. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, even though I think we all know you.
My name is Bob McKellar. I'm a farmer from Ivanhoe. I live at 3200 Road 164. I agree with almost everything that's been said. with a couple of modifications, and I want to make those because it's part of my point. I believe that there has been a lot done in the last 3 or 4 years to improve conditions in Ivanhoe. Yes, we have one deputy, but yes, we have a heck of a lot more than we used to have. Gangs, with the help of Phil Cox and Steve Worthley and the county, we had a big meeting there it's almost 2 years ago now. That's an improvement. A lot of things are improving. But this project has an opportunity to slow the improvement that we're trying to make slowly in our area. And the reason is because it's true that if these units are all rented, as has been testified to by people who live in Ivanhoe, that's fine. But then all of the places in Ivanhoe that these people are moving from are also going to be populated, and any way you want to slice it, we're going to have a 10% increase in population. And that type of thing and this type of a development is not going to help Ivanhoe improve. It's not going to help us have those things that we're working to get. And I would like to recommend that you turn this project down at this time. I thank you very much for listening.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Morning.
My name is Tom Harden. I live at 16089 Avenue 328. The biggest problem I have with this project and everything associated with it is these studies that were done on the impact of this study, done by the Resource Management Agency, the planning branch. Now, they've come to the conclusion that there's less than a significant impact on the community. And what is less than a significant impact? They think that a 10% increase in population doesn't substantially alter the makeup of a community. We're talking 10% on a previously empty lot. That's insignificant to them. They think that making improvements to the water system, and even so having to cut the number of units, that's an insignificant impact on the water system. There's barely enough capacity to support their project, and they have to downsize it just to get it to that point. They have said nothing about how this impacts the future growth in Ivanhoe, how this might be used, and that's the core of the issue right here, is we're changing the fundamental plan of where Ivanhoe is going, and there's a reason that it's designated C1. It's because it can't support this, and their studies actually do find that, they aren't going to be able to support this, but because their study is reduced to 4 check boxes that say no impact, little impact, or more than little impact, that's how they want to frame the question of what effect this is actually going to have on the community. He says he's talked to the chief of police of Woodlake about the problems in the other projects. He obviously can't talk to the chief of police in Ivanhoe because there is none. There's no police department. Ivanhoe is not a city. These other projects that they've built, they've been in cities. They've been in places that have the capacity to support them. This is the biggest problem with housing projects, is they're built in communities that have no resources to support this level of the population. Just the fact that on their presentation they would show linoleum and granite countertops of what they're building, that has absolutely nothing to do with zoning. Why would they put this up? This has nothing to do with the issue at hand, how nice these apartments are. The issue at hand is what this does to the community. The only benefit that they've said so far is that this provides affordable housing in a stable environment. There is no shortage of affordable housing in Ivanhoe. You can buy a $50,000 house, which works to a $300 a month mortgage. That's about the rate they're renting their apartments. This is not the problem in Ivanhoe. This is the farthest from the problems that Ivanhoe has. This project will increase every problem that Ivanhoe already faces that they don't have the resources to deal with. And for what? Simply because they're going to provide affordable housing in a stable environment, quote unquote. I don't see how Ivanhoe is more stable than Visalia. I don't see how you can have 20 shots fired in broad daylight on the main street with no witnesses and call that a stable environment. The only benefit that they proposed is this affordable housing in a stable environment, and that's a flat-out lie. You cannot prove to me that that's more stable than Visalia, how anybody moving into these apartments would be better served by this environment than anywhere in Visalia, with a police department, with parks, with organized activities for kids. I agree that Ivanhoe needs all these services that they stand to provide, learning centers, whatnot. That has nothing to do with the housing project being built. Those are services that Ivanhoe needs. That's a separate matter. This housing project doesn't provide those services. These are services provided by an outside organization, and you can't say that this is the reason that you're going to build the project. It's because of the services that they might provide from another organization. That's not what you can predicate zoning on. And you know, there's one deputy in Ivanhoe now, and I hope everybody understands what happened to the other deputy. He was assassinated, close range, a gang member, stuck his pistol up underneath his body armor, pulled the trigger, another shot in the face.
Sir, we've heard this 5 times in the last 40 minutes that there aren't enough police officers. Would you make another point, please?
Well, I'm sorry, nobody mentioned what happened to the other deputy. I thought that should be known because part of they're predicated on a stable environment. That's all I wanted to say. And none of their studies have they acknowledge the negatives of what could happen. I mean, obviously they say there's some impact on services, on education, on fire, but they don't say how this would improve that at all. They don't acknowledge what can be done to mitigate this. They simply have acknowledged that these problems are there, but they haven't admitted how much this is going to compound these problems. And the fact that they'll mention this and not say anything to the effect of what can be done about it and how this would actually outweigh the benefits of this housing project, I mean, it's a moot point. There's absolutely no reason that they can say this, and I think that's all I really have to say on the subject. Thank you.
Is there anyone with new information they would like to provide? Sir, you had about 8 minutes of 3. Is there anyone else that would like to provide some new information? Again, I do have a filled out request form from a Beatrice Coleman. She no longer wishing to make a comment. We're still, Captain Williams, we're still hearing those in opposition. I don't think you're going to stand up and speak in opposition to this project. Anyone else with some new information they'd like to provide? Mr. Harding, if you have something new to say, we'll listen, but please make it something new and brief.
$15 million spent in Ivanhoe will not affect, that's no payroll in Ivanhoe. That's just money that goes probably to prevailing wage jobs, not Ivanhoe jobs. And that may be one of the pushes. Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to address the board in opposition? Okay, seeing none else, Captain Williams, you have something to say?
Yes, I do. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the Sheriff's Department is not taking a position in this item. However, we feel an obligation to respond to some of the comments that were brought up in the RMA hearings, Planning Commission hearings, and in testimony today. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Department in charge of the Patrol Division, and I have this interoffice memorandum where some of these points are listed, and I want to talk about three of the points that were brought out in the Planning Commission meeting. Number one, the Los Angeles Times article regarding Ivanhoe having the highest per capita member of gangs in the state. Also, I want to talk about there's a comment that says there's a history of trouble at the apartments in Ivanhoe. I'm assuming that's talking about the Oakwood apartments. And then there's a comment that there's no police presence, which we've heard echoed in the comments here today by our concerned citizens of Ivanhoe. Regarding the gang membership in Ivanhoe, it's estimated that Ivanhoe has between 60 and 75 gang members, with a current population estimated to be in July of 2007 of 5,114. That equates to approximately 1.5% of the population. Currently, Goshen, it's estimated there's 64 gang members in Goshen, and that equates to about 2.3% of the population there. Cutler-Rossi, it's estimated there's 371 gang members in the Cutler-Rossi area. That's 2.5% of the population. Ivanhoe does not have the distinction. We just put those numbers together quickly. We didn't have a lot of previous notice of this information to respond to. So those were just some quick examples.
Captain Williams, while you're there, is it fair to say that there are gang members in every city and every unincorporated community of this county?
I would say that's a safe guess, yes.
I live on the second floor of my house in the good part of town and can hear shots being fired throughout the city of Visalia.
That's correct, and probably next Saturday you'll hear a lot more.
Just fireworks, I'm sure.
Okay. In addressing the history of trouble at the apartments in Ivanhoe, we have the Oakwood 1 and Oakwood 2 apartment complex that was pointed out on the map here. Over the last 6 months, there were 78 incidents that were actually in or on the streets around those apartments. With the combined occupancy of Oakwood 1 and Oakwood 2, that would equate to 5.6% of the total population of Ivanhoe, yet only 3.7% of the total incidents that occurred in the Ivanhoe area can be attributed to the Oakwood 1 and Oakwood 2 apartments. There's the current apartments we have there do not have the majority of the incidents in Ivanhoe, although we do have a lot of incidents at the apartment. There's other areas within Ivanhoe that have an equal amount, and especially if you drew a shape of the lots that are taken up by the actual geography around certain areas of Ivanhoe, you would find many, many more incidents and concentration of incidents that occur at the apartments, at the Oakwood 1 and Oakwood 2 apartments. There was a comment that there's no police presence or no police presence at night in the Ivanhoe area. We do have a full-time officer, deputy sheriff, that is assigned to that beat area for Ivanhoe. It does not go down to Poplar. It actually goes to Highway 198 on the south, Ben Maddox on the west, Woodlake to the east, and about Avenue 344 on the north. And it does not also include Three Rivers. Three Rivers has their own resident deputy assigned. We also have a community-based officer assigned to Ivanhoe. Now, primarily during the school year, this officer works mostly during the daytime. However, his shift is flexible and he works when he's needed out there. A lot of his time is spent with after-school programs and working with the school and the youth, working on some of the programs that Mr. McKellar talked about and that a lot of the board members are aware, programs that the Sheriff's Department has partnered on to try to reduce gang violence within the Ivanhoe area. Some of the other points brought up by some of the speakers here today was talking about possible jail closure. At this time, there's no plan to close any of the jails. We plan to keep them where they are right now. And that is with the current budget situation that we're all having to live with. One comment was made about 20 shots being fired during the daylight on a main street with no witnesses. If that was referring to the shots fired into a house a few weeks ago on Avenue 328, there were witnesses on that. There was actually a very good vehicle description, and we had many calls on that particular incident that came out. And it is still being investigated. We did have a homicide last year in Ivanhoe, and it was on the north side of the Oakwood Apartments out in front and into the street area. That case was investigated by the Sheriff's Department. We had people on the scene within a minute. We had, I should also mention that we have a gang officer in our gang unit that is assigned the responsibility for the Ivanhoe unit. While he may not work there every day, it is his responsibility to track problems in that area and to bring resources into the area when needed. And many gang details have been worked in the Ivanhoe area. That particular homicide case that was in Ivanhoe last year has been solved and was given to the district attorney's office, and there was a disposition in that case. And I think that pretty much covers most of the concerns that were brought up regarding the Sheriff's Department. There was also some questions regarding response time. Most of our response times on emergency calls in there are under 10 minutes. There will be times when low priority calls, a burglary that's maybe happened earlier in the day or a few days ago, may be half an hour to maybe 2 or 3 hours response time. That's going to depend on what other emergency calls all the deputies happen to be responding to at the time. Ivanhoe is fairly fortunate in the respect that the Visalia deputy his boundary is very close to the Ivanhoe deputy, and often that deputy also responds to assist in the Ivanhoe area. If there's
any questions,
I do have a question, Captain. Do you? We have similar sorts of apartment complexes that have been built by self-help in the Cutler, Orosi, and Goshen communities. Do you have any information about?
I am familiar with the ones in Goshen, and actually. Goshen built the Goshen Village Apartments. They have 62 units, 26 two-bedroom, 32 three-bedroom, and 6 four-bedroom. They have 238 people living there. There's currently no vacancies, and we have had really no problems at that site as of today. It's been they've been good neighbors thus far. And Goshen has a population of 2,736 as of July of 2007 was the estimate.
So that constituted a 10% increase in the city's population, that one project.
Fairly close, yes. Any other questions?
Thank you, Captain. Anybody else wishing to address this board during the public hearing time? Going once. Okay, we will close the public hearing portion of this. I believe we do have reason to adjourn into closed session. Items have been brought up, I think need to be discussed before we make any further comments.
Mr. Chairman, this is item B on your board's closed session agenda.
Pardon me?
Item B as in boy on your board's closed session agenda.
Okay, board, before we leave, we do have the option also of taking probably a 30-minute lunch break, as we have a 2 o'clock appointment this afternoon. Do we wish to do a quick closed session, have a 30-minute lunch break, and then be back here at 12:30? We've ordered in lunch. Does that work for the board?
I'd like to get this
I think
dealt with before we.
I agree.
Okay, we are not going to take a lunch break then. We're going to adjourn to closed session and we'll come back. So don't leave. We'll be back shortly. Okay, we're back from closed session. We would, Mr. Brady, would like to have you address a couple of the issues that were raised. I think you mentioned them during your opening comments, but would you please readdress a few of the comments, i.e. the water, sewer, traffic? I think we had adequate explanation from Captain Williams in regards to the public safety.
Roberto Brady, RMA. In summary of the public testimony received today in comparison with the information in the record, Mr. Hardin commented that the project was too dense and doesn't connect to anything along dangerous walk to school, and the Wood Lake project has more services. This was addressed in the Planning Commission hearing. The Planning Commission felt that the project was putting in a section of sidewalk and making other improvements to the area, which would have a net positive benefit on these issues. Erica Payne commented with regard to buses, bus service to the site, and a trucking company between the site and the school. This was also brought up at the Planning Commission. Again, the site will make improvements to the frontage of the property, and it's based on other projects that most of the traffic from there, most of the trips will be car-like truck trips with minimal use of buses. For one reason, their availability, but also based on surveys of other projects, as was mentioned in the initial study with reference to the ITE trip generation manual, and that those those numbers of trips generated did not meet the threshold required for a traffic impact study. Mr. Vic Box and also Ms. Payne commented that the project affects all of Ivanhoe, and Mr. Box commented that there was not hearing notice in accordance with the Brown Act. However, all of the public hearings that were held were noticed, and as I described in my original presentation, Mr. Sean Payne noted that you can't check on the kids, only on the adults when preparing applications for tenancy, and that this project will generate lots of commuting. As I mentioned before, the commuting that's generated does not appear to reach the threshold for a traffic study, and the applicant submitted information with regard to the process that's followed when reviewing applications and the one strike you're out policy. Mr. Hauser also commented that lots of people who work cannot attend these day hearings. I pointed out that our notice was in compliance with the state planning and zoning law and California Environmental Quality Act notice requirements. Mr. Bob McKellar indicated that he thought the project would slow improvement that's happening in Ivanhoe due to the increase in services. However, there was evidence at the Planning Commission hearing and in the staff report that the project is installing improvements and paying impact fees to the Ivanhoe Public Utility District that offset the impacts of this project. Mr. Tom Hardin commented as to the lack of a finding of significance in the initial study. However, that initial study was based on substantial evidence in the record. It does not appear that any evidence he submitted was new. It adds to the record of the initial study and the environmental determination. And as indicated, Captain Williams submitted information with regard to sheriff's service in the Ivanhoe area in response to other comments by people who commented today. That concludes my summary. The commission or the board has any questions?
Any questions for staff, board? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and or potential action. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this is, of course, in my district, and I listened attentively to the information presented here today. If anyone has followed my 11 years on the Board of Supervisors, they'll know that I have always been a strong proponent of private property rights, protecting private property rights, and oftentimes we find people support private property rights until the project's going to be built next to their house, and all of a sudden their concern for private property rights somewhat dissipate. I understand concerns. I understand fears. However, I do not think good land use decisions are based upon unwarranted fears. I cannot shed my knowledge when I walk in through these doors of past history. I have seen projects such as this built in Cutler, in Orosi, in Goshen, in Wood Lake, and in every instance I can only say that they have been beneficial to the communities. They have not been detrimental. They have not led to greater gang problems. They have actually done exactly what they set out to do, provide affordable housing in a very nice situation. The kind of situation when we had the grand opening of one in Goshen, and it was an overcast day, and I said, welcome to Tulare County, Monterey, because it was like being in Monterey. These are very attractive facilities, the kind of place you would want to live in. And the fact that they are available for people who have lesser incomes is a positive thing. We have the lowest, Tulare County is one of the poorest counties in the state of California. So there is a need for this type of housing throughout the county, not just in Ivanhoe, not just in the cities, but throughout the county. We are a growing county, and therefore there's a need for additional housing. I understand the concerns that have been raised today. I realize that my decision today will not be popular with those who spoke in opposition to the project, but I have to go with what I believe to be protection of private property rights and what is actually in the best interest of the community. Even though today people who are here may feel differently, I believe when they see this facility built and they see what happens in this facility, they are going to be pleased to have it in their community. And I realize saying that that's not a popular thing to say. Anyway, I won't have to say more about that. But I support this project. I would support and move to approve the project as has been submitted to us today.
But I will second that motion, but before I do so, I would just like to say that I think that the Corporation for Better Housing is not out to just provide affordable housing. I think they're out to become a member of the community, and they want to make a difference there. And a couple of the public members who spoke mentioned Ivanhoe moving in a certain direction. I think that the Corporation for Better Housing has the same goal in mind, to help moving Ivanhoe in a positive direction. And that's why I asked a question about their property management company, about their history, because I do think that that's what they want to do for the community. And so I see very positive impacts stemming from this project. And for that reason, I will second the motion.
But before we call for a vote, just by way of comment, while I was on the city council in Visalia, there was a project this size proposed for Mill Creek and Lover's Lane, managed by a management company, low-income housing. There was a public meeting held at the church. Some 180 of the residents showed up, and I literally feared for my life at the end of that meeting. And all of their concerns ended up being not substantiated. After the project was built, you drive by the project, it's a wonderful, beautiful, gated community, and I would encourage the Corporation for Better Housing to strive to make this one of those type of properties when people drive by, they're proud of it, that the accusations that have been made today are unsubstantiated. Any other comments before we call for the vote?
No, I'd just like to say that I've been working ever since I got on the board with Terabella, trying to get a project like this put in there. And we're still working in those directions. And I think the community, I can't talk for Ivanhoe, but I know Terabella would love to have a low-income housing project of this quality within their little city out there. And so I would also support it.
Okay. Any comments, Supervisor Ishida?
This is a hard one. And the reason it's hard is that the fact that you have a community plan and you have personal property rights involved and you have an applicant who's gone through all the required steps to get their project approved, and yet on the other side, the testimony we've heard from the community, I find is very thin, if not a poor reasons, or a number of poor reasons to oppose this project. It's the hard part for me is the fact that the people here who are in the community do not want this project. And the other part of me says that you have certain property rights. I do not believe in the comments used today to oppose this project. I think they're rather frivolous, but then I do respect the community saying what they want in their community, and that's why we have community plans. So I had not made up my mind, and I'm still wavering what way to go. But I will side with the community because of the community plan, and this is the third time we've changed the designation of this land. Even though I don't believe, again, I don't believe the argument against this project is valid at all.
Okay, everyone's had their moment. We'll call for the vote. Please, we have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Vanderpool. It is 4-1. Supervisor Ishida voting no. It passes. Okay, we still have 4 untimed items to be heard. We'll move now to item number 33, request from Resource Management Agency to support an energy partnership between Southern California Edison and San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization, to be named San Joaquin Valley Innovative Energy Watch. Mr. Seipert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Hal Seipert, Assistant Director, Resource Management Agency. Also present on this item is Brian Thorburn from the Southern California Edison. The item before you this afternoon is to consider support for an energy partnership between the Southern California Edison and the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization, which is to be named San Joaquin Valley Innovative Energy Watch. This afternoon we are requesting a resolution of support for the energy partnership between Southern California and Edison, and the long name that goes with it. Tulare County's participation in an endeavor like this demonstrates a commitment to sustainable practices throughout our region in energy efficiency and provides leadership in promoting such practices. This fits nicely with our strategic initiative number 3, which is the natural resources management and continued improvement of the environment and quality. Also, energy efficiency fits well into our county general plan and is something that we strive for. I want to point out at this point in time that there is no cost to the general fund, and there would only be cost to the general fund or to the county if a energy efficiency project was brought to your board for consideration. What we are striving to do here is, again, participate in this regional endeavor that is going to promote energy efficiency, not only in county facilities, but also in homes and businesses throughout this area. So that would be my presentation. If you have any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, Mr. Thilburn, you waited a long time. You want to say anything before we vote? I'm sure you'll make it brief.
Justifying his position.
Well, who am I to pass up an invitation like that, an open mic? Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and board members. I just want to express, on behalf of Southern California Edison and the Valley Innovative Energy Watch Partnership, our appreciation for your consideration, and we want to thank Mr. Seipert and Ms. Henry for their participation as well on this effort. We view this as an important vehicle for not only us, but you and your colleagues in local government. We've got mandates and regulations that we have to comply with, whether it's energy conservation or reducing your carbon footprint. We view this as a vehicle to help accomplish those goals, not only for us as a utility, but as for you as a local government. So, and as Hal mentioned, ultimately taking this out into the communities that we serve to maximize our customers' energy efficiency and conservation as well. So. We appreciate your cooperation.
Thank you. Bring back the rebates, Mr. Thilburn.
Standby. Remember that word, standby?
Okay, entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second. Moved by Ennis, second by Vanderpool. Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Thilburn. Item 34, changes in allocated positions in Resource Management Agency.
Good afternoon. Roger Hunt, RMA Assistant Director in charge of administration. And we're bringing these requested changes to you today to try to get as much of a cost savings as we can for the 09-10 budget year. Previously in March, we brought some requests to you to do some consolidation and reduction of staff in order to curb costs. And again, we're coming to you to do likewise. We're seeing a continued downturn in the economy and building permits. And so we're looking at a deletion of 17 positions, or I should say 19 positions, 17 which are vacant, 2 are filled. Those 2 are within the Building Inspection Division. We're also looking at making 22 moves of staff. 17 are staff that serve the Tulare County Redevelopment Agency, and 1 would be moving surveyor to roads, and 1 from countywide communications to maintenance. And then finally, we're moving 3 people, wanting to move 3 people from the permit center over to project review. That would stay within the general fund. Finally, we're asking to add an accountant 3 position for the redevelopment agency. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Net loss of people actually serving in these positions. We're talking a lot of numbers, but what is our net loss?
The actual net loss is 2 filled positions. And
are we becoming a lean, mean fighting machine by doing this? I mean, that's a term I use, but I mean, it appears that government across the board is needing to downsize because of the economy, and it sounds to me like we're being forced to make some of these changes and maybe modifications to become more efficient and more in line with the budget that we're going to have.
That is correct.
Any other questions?
I have a comment following up on Supervisor Cox's question, is that we have a net 2 lost in all this movement. But yet I look at moving people into the permit division
moving people from the permit center over to project review.
Even to project review when the economy's down to where we do not have as many projects.
Well, what we're planning to do there is by moving the 3 planners from the permit center over to project review, they're actually going to provide services to the permit center, but it won't be necessarily 3 people. It will be as needed at the permit center. And so that then you can use the staff to more efficiently at the permit center as well as in the project review projects.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Any other questions, comments? Entertain a motion.
So moved, Chairman.
Moved by Worthley, second by Ennis.
Thank you.
Unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt. Mr. Huntley is making his way to the microphone. Number 35 is a request from our HR&D for a reduction in allocated positions for Human Resource and Development Department. Mr. Huntley.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this is preemptive in the sense that this is an opportunity to do this now so we can achieve more savings in 09-10. And that's really do it now and I don't have to cut more later, quite frankly. It's elimination of 1 vacant position and elimination and layoff of 1 position, and I'll be happy to respond to questions.
So net loss would be 1 employee?
Yes.
Any questions?
Move approval.
Moved by Ashita.
Second.
Second by Worthley. Thank you, Mr. Huntley. Our last on-time item of the day is number 36, a request from our Information Technology Division for staff reduction. Good morning, Ms. Yates.
Good afternoon. Distinguished members of the board, CAO, and County Council. Peg Yates, Information Technology Department. I come before you this morning with a heavy heart after a great deal of analysis, making a reduction. In other areas, we've done reductions in maintenance costs on our contracts, restructured some of the contracts. We've worked very diligently to make every area of information technology more efficient. We have no choice but to come before you and ask for a reduction in the number of allocated positions. The reduction is for 3 positions, 2 filled, and 1 that is vacant had been filled by extra help. So it is a reduction of 3 full-time positions.
Any questions? Entertain a motion.
I have a comment. You know, I can sense the difficulty that you're having, Ms. Yates, and every department head has in making these decisions. But I think once you have cut in every area that you can cut and consolidated and done as much as you can possibly do, you're left with the ultimate decision to lay off, and that's a very difficult thing to do. But when the funding's not there and there's nothing else that you can possibly do, this is your last choice and you have to do it. So I feel your pain, and this is a very difficult decision to make, not only for you, but for every department head that's going through these consolidations. So,
absolutely. Thank you.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ashita, seconded by Ennis. It's unanimous. Thank you. And we, at this time, do still have need for closed session. We have other items. Council?
We do, Mr. Chairman. On your board's regular closed session and closed session agenda, item A is off agenda. You have, and we've already adjourned to item B. We have items C through H. I do not anticipate any announcements.
Thank you. We'll adjourn to closed session.